Welcome, citizens of South Park and wanderers of the unknown. Tonight, we venture beyond the surface of Colorado's strangest mountain town to explore the mysteries that lurk beneath its deceptively simple facade. Here lie secrets that the show's creators have woven into 25 years of storytelling, hidden connections, unexplained phenomena, and questions that remain tantalizingly unanswered. So settle into your bed, let the mountain mist envelope your thoughts, and prepare to drift as we uncover the enigmatic truths of South Park's most perplexing mysteries. Close your eyes, fellow mystery seekers, and let's begin. In the labyrinthine depths beneath South Park's seemingly innocent suburban streets lies perhaps the most sophisticated and inexplicable economic operation ever discovered by human observation. A network of diminutive creatures whose business model has baffled economists, philosophers, and anyone unfortunate enough to encounter their nocturnal activities firsthand. The Underpants Gnomes represent more than mere cartoon absurdity or childhood nightmare fuel, but rather a profound commentary on the fundamental contradictions that plague modern capitalism while simultaneously embodying mysteries that challenge our understanding of organized labor, resource allocation, and the very nature of economic purpose in a post-industrial society. The discovery of the Underpants Gnomes' operation occurred through Tweek's caffeine-fueled insomnia, a condition that granted him unique access to the shadow economy that operates while the rest of South Park sleeps in blissful ignorance of the theft occurring beneath their very beds. Tweek's initial encounters with these creatures revealed not random mischief or simple kleptomania, but rather a highly organized industrial operation that demonstrated remarkable efficiency in collection, sorting, and storage of undergarments while maintaining absolute secrecy from the surface world. The precision of their operations, the coordination of their efforts, and the sheer scale of their collection activities suggested an economic enterprise of staggering complexity, operating according to principles that transcend normal business logic. The infamous three-phase business plan that the Underpants Gnomes revealed to Tweek and the other boys represents one of fiction's most devastating critiques of corporate thinking and capitalist assumptions about the relationship between activity and profit. Phase 1, the collection of underpants, demonstrates remarkable organizational capability and resource management, as the gnomes systematically harvest their chosen commodity from every household in South Park, with military precision and logistical sophistication that would impress any supply chain manager. Phase 3, profit, represents the ultimate goal that drives their entire operation and justifies the enormous expenditure of time, energy, and risk involved in their nocturnal activities. Yet Phase 2 remains mysteriously undefined, represented only by question marks that embody the fundamental gap in understanding that separates frantic activity from meaningful result. This missing Phase 2 serves as a metaphor for the countless business ventures, economic policies, and corporate strategies that assume profit will naturally emerge from increased activity without clearly articulating the mechanism by which input transforms into output. The Gnomes' business plan mirrors real-world economic thinking that focuses intensely on resource acquisition and profit expectations, while remaining mysteriously vague about the actual value creation process that must occur between these two endpoints. Their unwavering confidence that Phase 3 will inevitably follow from Phase 1 reflects the magical thinking that characterizes much of contemporary capitalism, where the assumption of eventual profit justifies any amount of preliminary investment or resource extraction. The underground infrastructure that supports the Underpants Gnomes operation reveals an economic system of remarkable sophistication that operates entirely parallel to South Park's surface economy, while remaining completely invisible to conventional economic analysis and government oversight. Their subterranean facilities demonstrate advanced engineering capabilities, efficient transportation networks, and sophisticated storage systems that rival any legitimate business operation while maintaining absolute secrecy from surface dwellers, who remain unaware that their most intimate garments fuel an entire hidden economy. The tunnels that connect homes throughout South Park represent infrastructure investment on a massive scale, suggesting either centuries of development or access to construction technologies that exceed anything available to surface contractors. The labor organization within the Underpants Gnomes' society reveals economic principles that challenge conventional assumptions about worker motivation, management hierarchy, and the relationship between individual effort and collective benefit. Every gnome appears equally committed to their collection mission, working with enthusiasm and dedication that suggests either perfect alignment between personal and organizational goals, or a form of social conditioning that eliminates individual self-interest in favor of collective purpose. Their apparent lack of internal conflict, labor disputes, or management problems demonstrates either ideal economic organization or the complete suppression of individual economic interests in favor of systemic efficiency. The commodity choice of focusing exclusively on underpants raises profound questions about market analysis, consumer demand, and the gnomes' understanding of value creation within their mysterious economic framework. Unlike precious metals, technological components, or other obviously valuable materials, underpants represent consumable goods with limited resale value and no apparent industrial applications that would justify the enormous effort invested in their collection. The gnomes' exclusive focus on this specific commodity suggests either profound insights into hidden market forces that remain invisible to surface economists, or fundamental misunderstanding of basic economic principles that govern supply and demand relationships. The storage systems observed within the gnomes' underground facilities reveal an operation that treats underpants collection not as immediate profit generation, but as long-term capital accumulation, suggesting economic thinking that operates on timescales far exceeding normal business planning horizons. The massive warehouses filled with sorted and categorized undergarments represent inventory management on an unprecedented scale, indicating either preparation for a future market opportunity that has not yet materialized, or the transformation of collection activity into an end goal that has replaced profit generation as the organization's primary purpose. This accumulation without apparent distribution suggests economic thinking that has become divorced from normal concepts of utility, exchange, or value realization. The secrecy that surrounds the gnomes' operation creates additional economic mysteries, as their careful concealment of their activities from surface dwellers suggests either awareness that their operations would face legal or social opposition, or understanding that their competitive advantage depends upon maintaining information asymmetries that prevent surface interference. The energy and resources devoted to maintaining operational secrecy represent significant overhead costs that would be unnecessary if their business model could withstand public scrutiny, suggesting either illegal activities or economic strategies that depend upon market manipulation or information control for their effectiveness. The relationship between the Underpants Gnomes and South Park's broader economy raises questions about parallel economic systems, underground resource flows, and the possibility that significant economic activity occurs outside the measurement and regulation systems that government officials and economists assume capture all meaningful economic behavior. The gnomes' ability to operate without any apparent interaction with surface financial systems, regulatory agencies, or taxation authorities suggests either complete economic independence or sophisticated methods of avoiding detection that exceed the capabilities of conventional law enforcement and economic monitoring systems. The philosophical implications of the gnome's business model extend beyond simple economic critique to encompass broader questions about the relationship between activity and meaning, purpose and result, effort and achievement in any organized human endeavor. Their unwavering commitment to Phase 1 activities, despite the mysterious nature of Phase 2, reflects psychological patterns that characterize many human organizations where the preservation of institutional activity becomes more important than the achievement of institutional purposes. The gnomes embody the tragedy of organizations that lose sight of their original objectives while becoming increasingly efficient at performing activities that no longer serve any meaningful purpose. The temporal aspects of the gnome's operation suggest economic thinking that transcends normal concepts of quarterly profits, annual performance, or any conventional business cycle measurement, as their collection activities appear to continue indefinitely without any apparent timeline for Phase 2 implementation or Phase 3 realization. This patient accumulation of resources without immediate monetization reflects either profound confidence in eventual market opportunities or the transformation of means into ends that characterizes many long-term institutional operations. Their ability to sustain complex operations across extended time periods without visible profit generation suggests access to economic resources or motivational systems that remain invisible to surface observation. The technological capabilities demonstrated by the gnomes reveal access to engineering and construction resources that raise questions about their relationship to other underground organizations, their historical development within South Park's ecosystem, or their possible connections to supernatural or extraterrestrial influences that transcend normal economic analysis. Their tunneling capabilities, their transportation systems, and their storage facilities represent infrastructure investments that would require significant capital expenditure and technical expertise, suggesting either long-term economic development or access to resources and knowledge that remain unavailable to surface organizations. The social organization within gnome society demonstrates economic cooperation and collective action that operates without apparent monetary exchange, individual property rights, or hierarchical management structures that characterize most surface economic organizations. Their ability to coordinate complex operations through apparent consensus and shared commitment suggests alternative economic models that challenge conventional assumptions about the necessity of market mechanisms, private property, or centralized authority for efficient resource allocation and goal achievement. This communist-like organization operating within a capitalist framework creates philosophical tensions that reflect broader questions about economic system, compatibility, and effectiveness. The psychological profile of individual gnomes reveals dedication to organizational purposes that transcends normal concepts of individual self-interest or personal benefit, suggesting either ideal social conditioning that aligns individual and collective interests or systematic suppression of individual economic motivation in favor of group objectives. Their apparent satisfaction with endless collection activities despite unclear ultimate purposes reflects psychological adaptation to meaningless work that mirrors many aspects of contemporary employment, where workers perform activities that contribute to organizational goals they cannot understand or influence. The environmental impact of the gnomes' operations represents resource extraction and infrastructure development that occurs outside normal environmental protection systems, regulatory oversight, or impact assessment procedures that govern surface economic activities. Their underground construction projects and ongoing collection activities affect South Park's ecological systems while remaining invisible to environmental monitoring and protection efforts, suggesting significant gaps in human understanding of total environmental impact from all economic activities occurring within any given geographical area. The cultural significance of the gnomes' exclusive focus on undergarments reveals possible symbolic or psychological dimensions to their economic activities that transcend simple material accumulation or profit generation, as their commodity choice targets items with intimate personal significance and cultural taboo associations that suggest deeper motivations than pure economic calculation. The invasion of privacy involved in their collection activities and their focus on garments associated with personal intimacy and cultural shame create psychological dimensions to their economic model that remain unexplored and unexplained within their stated business framework. The ultimate mystery of the Underpants Gnomes lies not in their efficient execution of Phase 1 or their confident expectation of Phase 3, but in the persistent absence of any progress toward Phase 2 development, or any evidence that such progress is even being attempted by their organization. Their continued collection activities, despite decades of operational experience without profit realization, suggests either profound patience based on superior knowledge of future market conditions, or institutional inertia that has transformed collection activity into organizational purpose, independent of original economic objectives. This perpetual suspension between activity and result creates a perfect metaphor for economic systems that have lost connection between effort and meaning, while maintaining the appearance of purposeful progress toward undefined goals. The Underpants Gnomes represent capitalism's unconscious confession of its own fundamental contradiction, embodying the magical thinking that assumes profit will naturally emerge from activity without requiring clear understanding of value creation, processes, or market mechanisms that transform effort into meaningful result. Their unwavering commitment to their mysterious business model reflects the faith-based economics that characterizes much contemporary business thinking, where confidence in eventual success justifies any amount of preliminary investment, regardless of evidence supporting the underlying assumptions about how such success might actually be achieved. In the rich tapestry of South Park's most enigmatic residents, no figure presents a more compelling array of unexplained contradictions and mysterious depths than Jerome McElroy, better known simply as Chef, whose presence in the small mountain town defied every logical explanation for how someone with his evident talents, worldly experience, and sophisticated understanding of human nature came to spend his days serving cafeteria food to elementary school children, while dispensing wisdom that seemed to emerge from sources far beyond his apparent station in life. Chef represented a walking mystery whose very existence raised fundamental questions about identity, purpose, and the hidden currents of knowledge that flow beneath the surface of even the most mundane social interactions, creating a character whose every appearance hinted at depths of experience and understanding that his simple job title could never adequately encompass or explain. The musical abilities that Chef demonstrated throughout his tenure at South Park Elementary transcended any reasonable explanation for how a school cafeteria worker might have acquired such sophisticated vocal techniques, compositional skills, and performance capabilities that rivaled professional entertainers, while maintaining the kind of stage presence and musical charisma that typically require years of professional development and industry experience. His ability to transform any conversational topic into elaborate musical numbers revealed not just natural talent but trained expertise in songwriting, melody, construction, and lyrical composition that suggested formal musical education or extensive professional experience in the entertainment industry. The complexity of his musical arrangements, the sophistication of his vocal techniques, and the seamless way he incorporated contemporary musical styles into his spontaneous performances indicated a level of musical development that seemed impossible to achieve while simultaneously working full-time in food service. The lyrical content of Chef's musical responses to the boys' questions revealed encyclopedic knowledge of human relationships, sexual psychology, and social dynamics that extended far beyond what any individual could reasonably acquire through personal experience alone, suggesting access to information sources or life experiences that remained completely hidden from his South Park neighbors and colleagues. His songs addressed complex topics with nuanced understanding that demonstrated familiarity with psychological theories, relationship counseling techniques, and sociological concepts that would typically require formal education in human development or extensive professional experience in counseling or therapy. The accuracy of his advice and the sophistication of his insights into human behavior suggested either supernatural intuition or professional background in fields completely unrelated to food service. The apparent ease with which Chef transitioned between his role as cafeteria worker and his function as musical advisor created psychological mysteries about identity, compartmentalization, and professional code switching that raised questions about which version of himself represented his authentic personality and which served as carefully constructed social performance. The dramatic difference between his mundane cafeteria interactions with adult colleagues and his elaborate musical responses to children's questions suggested either remarkable psychological flexibility or the maintenance of multiple, distinct identities that served different social functions within the same community. This ability to inhabit completely different personas depending on his audience and context indicated psychological sophistication that seemed inconsistent with someone whose primary occupation involved serving institutional food. The celebrity connections that Chef claimed throughout various episodes created additional layers of mystery about his past experiences and current relationships with individuals whose fame and success seemed completely disconnected from small-town Colorado life or elementary school employment. His casual references to personal interactions with famous musicians, actors, and cultural figures suggested either elaborate fantasy construction or genuine historical connections to entertainment industry circles that he had somehow abandoned to work in South Park's educational system. The specificity of his celebrity anecdotes and the confidence with which he discussed industry insider knowledge indicated either remarkable imagination or authentic experience in environments that bore no relationship to his current circumstances. The Isaac Hayes connection that manifested through Chef's musical style and vocal characteristics created meta-textual mysteries about the relationship between fictional character development and real-world artistic influence that blurred boundaries between creative inspiration and supernatural channeling in ways that suggested Chef might serve as conduit for musical knowledge and performance capabilities that transcended normal human limitations. The uncanny resemblance between Chef's vocal style and Isaac Hayes' distinctive musical approach raised questions about whether Chef represented homage, possession, or some form of artistic reincarnation that enabled him to access musical abilities through supernatural means rather than conventional training or experience. The timing of Chef's appearances in response to the boys' needs created patterns that suggested either remarkable intuition about when his advice would be most needed or supernatural awareness of developing situations that enabled him to provide guidance at precisely the moments when his wisdom could have maximum positive impact. His ability to materialize whenever the children faced relationship dilemmas or required adult guidance about complex social situations indicated either extraordinary coincidence or some form of mystical connection to their emotional states that transcended normal social awareness. This seemingly psychic responsiveness to their needs suggested that Chef's role in their lives operated according to principles that extended beyond conventional mentorship or casual adult supervision. The philosophical sophistication of Chef's advice revealed understanding of human nature and relationship dynamics that seemed to emerge from sources far deeper than personal experience or conventional wisdom, suggesting access to psychological and spiritual insights that transcended normal adult knowledge and approached prophetic or mystical understanding of human behavior and emotional needs. His ability to distill complex relationship problems into simple but profound musical statements demonstrated not just communication skills but genuine wisdom about the fundamental patterns that govern human interaction and emotional development. The universal applicability of his advice and the way his guidance consistently helped the boys navigate difficult situations suggested either supernatural insight or life experience so extensive that it encompassed virtually every possible human relationship challenge. The cultural knowledge that Chef displayed through his musical references and social commentary revealed familiarity with historical periods, musical genres, and cultural movements that seemed impossible for any individual to have personally experienced, suggesting either extensive academic study of American cultural history or supernatural access to collective cultural memory that enabled him to draw upon knowledge from across decades of social and musical development. His seamless integration of musical styles from different eras and his sophisticated understanding of cultural contexts indicated either remarkable autodidactic learning or mystical connection to cultural knowledge that transcended individual experience and formal education. The romantic history that Chef occasionally referenced created additional mysteries about his personal life and the experiences that shaped his understanding of relationships. As his stories suggested, involvement with numerous partners across various social circles and geographical locations, in ways that seemed inconsistent with someone who had spent significant time working in a small mountain town. The diversity of his romantic experiences and the sophistication of his understanding about different types of relationships indicated either extensive personal history or remarkable empathy and imagination that enabled him to understand relationship dynamics without necessarily having experienced them directly. His ability to provide advice about relationship situations that seemed to exceed his personal experience suggested either supernatural insight or carefully concealed background in relationship counseling or therapy. The culinary skills that Chef demonstrated in his professional capacity revealed competence that transcended typical institutional food service, while incorporating creative elements and nutritional awareness that suggested formal training in food preparation or professional experience in restaurant environments that bore no relationship to school cafeteria work. His ability to prepare meals that satisfied children's dietary preferences while maintaining nutritional standards indicated understanding of child development and nutritional science that extended beyond basic food service training. The creativity he brought to institutional cooking and his apparent pride in his culinary work suggested professional identity and skills that seemed underutilized in his current employment situation. The educational philosophy that underlay Chef's interactions with the boys revealed sophisticated understanding of child development and learning theory that suggested either formal training in education or natural intuition about how children process information and develop emotional understanding through guided experience. His ability to address complex topics in age-appropriate ways while maintaining honesty about difficult subjects, demonstrated remarkable sensitivity to developmental needs and communication challenges that typically require professional training or extensive experience. Working with children, the effectiveness of his teaching methods and the lasting impact of his guidance on the boy's development suggested either natural gift for education or professional background that remained hidden from his South Park colleagues. The psychological complexity that Sheff displayed in his relationships with adult characters revealed social intelligence and emotional sophistication that contrasted sharply with the apparent simplicity of his professional role and social position within South Park's community hierarchy. His ability to navigate complex social situations while maintaining dignity and authenticity suggested either remarkable personal strength or professional experience in environments that required sophisticated social skills and emotional resilience. The respect he commanded from community members, despite his modest occupational status, indicated personal qualities and hidden accomplishments that transcended his visible contributions to the community. The spiritual dimensions of Sheff's wisdom revealed understanding of human nature and life's deeper meanings that approached mystical or religious insight while remaining grounded in practical guidance that helped individuals navigate real-world challenges and relationship difficulties. His ability to address existential questions and provide comfort during times of confusion or distress suggested either natural spiritual wisdom or formal training in counseling or ministry that remained completely hidden from his daily interactions with colleagues and community members. The depth of his spiritual understanding and his ability to communicate complex philosophical concepts through simple musical messages indicated access to wisdom traditions that transcended conventional religious or philosophical education. The linguistic capabilities that Sheff demonstrated through his musical compositions revealed vocabulary, cultural references, and communication skills that suggested extensive education or professional experience in fields requiring sophisticated verbal abilities and cultural literacy. His ability to create complex rhyme schemes, develop elaborate metaphors, and incorporate diverse cultural references into his songs indicated either natural poetic talent or formal training in creative writing and literary composition. The intellectual sophistication of his lyrics and the cultural breadth of his references suggested educational background or professional experience that remained completely inconsistent with his current employment circumstances. The timing of Sheff's departure from South Park created additional mysteries about the forces that brought him to the community and eventually drew him away, as his sudden involvement with external organizations and his dramatic change in personality suggested either supernatural influence or revelation of hidden aspects of his identity that had remained dormant throughout his tenure at the school. The abrupt transformation in his behavior and beliefs indicated either external manipulation or the emergence of previously concealed ideological commitments that had been suppressed during his time serving as advisor and mentor to the patient boys. His departure raised questions about whether his entire presence in South Park had served purposes beyond his apparent role as cafeteria worker, and whether his guidance and support had been part of larger plans that transcended individual choice or community service. The legacy that Sheff left behind in the boy's development and the community's memory created lasting impact that suggested his influence operated according to principles that transcended normal mentorship or casual adult guidance. As his teachings continued to shape their decision-making and emotional development long after his physical presence had been removed from their daily lives. The durability of his influence and the way his wisdom continued to resonate in their thinking indicated either exceptional teaching abilities or supernatural connection to their development that ensured his guidance would remain accessible even after he could no longer provide direct support and advice. The ultimate mystery of Chef's identity and purpose in South Park lies not in any single unexplained aspect of his background or abilities, but in the complete disconnection between his evident talents, knowledge, and capabilities and his chosen role as elementary school cafeteria worker in a small mountain town where his remarkable gifts seemed simultaneously essential to the community's well-being and completely wasted on tasks that required only a fraction of his apparent abilities. His presence suggested either remarkable self-sacrifice in service of purposes that remained hidden from observation, or the operation of larger forces that placed individuals with extraordinary capabilities in positions where they could serve needs that transcended conventional understanding of community service and personal fulfillment. In the seemingly ordinary mountain town of South Park, Colorado, where elevation and isolation might explain away the occasional oddity or eccentric resident, there exists a concentration of supernatural phenomena so dense and persistent that it defies every conventional explanation for paranormal activity and suggests that this particular geographical location serves as a nexus point where the barriers between dimensions grow thin, where ancient forces maintain their strongest earthly influence, and where the normal laws of physics and reality bend under the weight of cosmic influences that operate according to principles far beyond human comprehension. The sheer frequency and variety of supernatural events that occur within South Park's municipal boundaries create patterns that transcend coincidence or random chance, indicating instead that the town itself possesses unique characteristics that attract, amplify, or generate otherworldly phenomena in ways that transform everyday life into constant exposure to forces that most communities encounter only in folklore or nightmares. The geographical positioning of South Park within the Colorado Rocky Mountains places it at the intersection of geological forces and atmospheric conditions that create natural phenomena which might serve as foundations for supernatural activity, as the high altitude, unique mineral compositions of the surrounding rock formations, and the interaction between mountain weather patterns and electromagnetic fields could generate environmental conditions that weaken the boundaries between our physical reality and other dimensional planes. The town's location in a mountain valley creates a natural basin effect where energies might concentrate and accumulate rather than dispersing across larger geographical areas, potentially explaining why supernatural events that might occur sporadically across wider regions become concentrated into a single community where residents experience otherworldly encounters with disturbing regularity. The historical timeline of South Park's settlement and development reveals patterns that suggest the town's supernatural characteristics may predate modern habitation, as archaeological evidence and historical records hint at Native American awareness of the area's unusual properties long before European settlers established permanent communities in the region. The reluctance of indigenous peoples to establish permanent settlements in the valley, despite its apparent advantages for agriculture and shelter, may reflect traditional knowledge about supernatural dangers or spiritual significance that prevented long-term occupation by individuals who possessed cultural frameworks for understanding and respecting otherworldly forces. The subsequent attraction of European settlers to the same area that indigenous peoples avoided suggests either ignorance of the supernatural risks or deliberate exploitation of the area's unusual properties for purposes that remain hidden in historical records. The pattern of supernatural visitors that South Park attracts reveals a diversity of otherworldly entities that suggests the town serves as a recognized way station or gathering point for beings from multiple dimensional planes, cosmic hierarchies, and supernatural ecosystems that normally remain isolated from human contact. The appearance of angels and demons, aliens, and interdimensional beings, mythological creatures, and cosmic entities within the same geographical area indicates that South Park's supernatural characteristics transcend any single type of paranormal activity and instead create conditions that welcome or enable contact with virtually every category of non-human intelligence that folklore and religion have documented throughout human history. This universal attraction for supernatural beings suggests that the town possesses properties that operate at fundamental levels of reality, rather than serving as habitat for any specific type of otherworldly creature. The frequency with which government agencies and military organizations appear in South Park to investigate, cover up, or respond to supernatural events reveals official recognition of the town's unusual characteristics and suggests that federal authorities maintain ongoing monitoring and response protocols specifically designed to manage the supernatural activity that concentrates in this location. The sophistication of government cover-up operations and the speed with which official responses mobilize indicate that South Park's supernatural phenomena are neither unexpected nor unmonitored by authorities who possess institutional knowledge about the town's unique properties and the potential threats that such activity might pose to national security or public welfare. The existence of specialized protocols for managing South Park supernatural events suggests decades or centuries of accumulated experience dealing with otherworldly phenomena that require resources and expertise far beyond conventional law, enforcement, or emergency response capabilities. The electromagnetic anomalies that characterize South Park's technological environment create additional evidence for supernatural influence, as electronic devices frequently malfunction in ways that suggest interference from energy sources that operate outside normal electromagnetic spectra and influence technology through mechanisms that conventional science cannot explain or predict. The pattern of technological failures during supernatural events indicates that otherworldly phenomena generate energy signatures that disrupt electronic systems while creating interference patterns that correlate with the intensity and proximity of supernatural activity. These technological disruptions serve both as early warning systems for supernatural events and as evidence that otherworldly forces interact with physical reality through energy emissions that affect electromagnetic fields and electronic circuits. The temporal distortions that occasionally manifest in South Park create some of the most compelling evidence that the town's supernatural characteristics affect fundamental aspects of reality itself. As time flows differently during certain supernatural events, and characters sometimes experience chronological inconsistencies that suggest the normal progression of cause and effect becomes unstable when otherworldly influences reach sufficient intensity. The ability of supernatural forces to manipulate temporal flow indicates that South Park's unusual properties affect space-time itself rather than simply enabling contact between our dimension and others, suggesting that the town occupies a position where the basic structure of reality becomes malleable and subject to influences that operate according to physics that transcend human understanding. The psychological effects that prolonged residence in South Park produces among its inhabitants reveal adaptation patterns that suggest constant exposure to supernatural phenomena creates mental and emotional changes that enable individuals to function normally, despite regular encounters with otherworldly forces that would traumatize populations without similar environmental conditioning. The casual acceptance with which South Park residents respond to supernatural events indicates either psychological resilience developed through repeated exposure or subtle mental alterations that prevent normal fear and anxiety responses to otherworldly encounters. This psychological adaptation serves protective functions that enable community survival in an environment where supernatural activity poses constant potential threats to mental health and social stability. The seasonal patterns that characterize some types of supernatural activity in South Park suggest that otherworldly phenomena respond to natural cycles and astronomical events that create windows of increased dimensional permeability or enhanced supernatural influence during specific times of year. The correlation between certain types of supernatural events and seasonal changes indicates that Earth's orbital position, solar radiation patterns, or lunar cycles create conditions that strengthen or weaken the barriers between our reality and other dimensional planes. These cyclical patterns of supernatural activity suggest that South Park's unique properties fluctuate according to cosmic rhythms that affect the entire solar system, while being amplified by local, geographical, or geological characteristics that concentrate otherworldly influences. The underground cave systems and geological formations surrounding South Park create additional possibilities for supernatural activity, as subsurface chambers and mineral formations might serve as natural amplifiers or focusing devices for otherworldly energies, while providing physical spaces where supernatural entities can establish permanent or semi-permanent presence in our dimensional plane. The interaction between South Park's supernatural phenomena and its geological structure suggests that certain types of rock formations, underground water systems, or mineral deposits create conditions that enhance supernatural activity through mechanisms that combine physics with metaphysics in ways that conventional science has never investigated or documented. The atmospheric conditions that characterize South Park's climate create another potential factor in the town's supernatural characteristics, as high-altitude air pressure, unique weather patterns, and the interaction between mountain winds and electromagnetic fields might generate atmospheric conditions that weaken dimensional barriers, or create energy fields that attract supernatural entities from other planes of existence. The correlation between certain types of weather patterns and increased supernatural activity suggests that atmospheric pressure, humidity levels, or electromagnetic field fluctuations create environmental conditions that enhance otherworldly phenomena through meteorological mechanisms that operate according to principles that bridge conventional atmospheric science with supernatural physics. The magnetic field anomalies that geological surveys have detected in the South Park area provide scientific evidence for unusual electromagnetic conditions that might explain or contribute to the town's supernatural characteristics, as variations in magnetic field strength and direction could indicate subsurface mineral formations or geological structures that generate energy fields capable of affecting dimensional stability or attracting otherworldly attention. The correlation between magnetic field anomalies and reported supernatural activity suggests that electromagnetic forces play crucial roles in enabling or amplifying otherworldly phenomena through mechanisms that combine conventional physics with supernatural influences in ways that create observable effects on both scientific instruments and human experience. The water sources that supply South Park reveal additional potential factors in the town's supernatural characteristics, as underground springs and mountain streams might carry mineral compositions or energy signatures that affect human physiology and consciousness in ways that increase sensitivity to supernatural phenomena or create conditions that enable otherworldly contact. The unique chemical composition of South Park's water supply and its potential effects on neural function and electromagnetic sensitivity could explain why residents develop increased receptivity to supernatural influences while maintaining the physical and mental stability necessary for normal social functioning. Despite constant exposure to otherworldly phenomena, the elevation effects that characterize high-altitude environments create physiological changes that might contribute to South Park's supernatural activity by altering brain chemistry, oxygen levels, and electromagnetic sensitivity in ways that increase human receptivity to otherworldly influences, while creating conditions that enable supernatural entities to interact more easily with individuals whose consciousness has been modified by altitude-induced neurochemical changes. The correlation between elevation and reported supernatural activity in mountain communities worldwide suggests that altitude effects operate as contributing factors that enhance supernatural sensitivity through mechanisms that combine atmospheric pressure with human physiology in ways that bridge physical and metaphysical influences. The solar radiation levels that characterize high-altitude locations create additional environmental factors that might contribute to South Park's supernatural characteristics by generating electromagnetic conditions, neurochemical effects that increase sensitivity to otherworldly phenomena, while creating atmospheric conditions that weaken dimensional barriers through mechanisms that involve cosmic ray exposure and its effects on human consciousness and local electromagnetic fields. The interaction between solar radiation and South Park's unique geographical characteristics might create energy conditions that amplify supernatural activity through solar electromagnetic influences that operate according to principles that combine astronomy with metaphysics. The gravitational anomalies that some researchers have reported in the South Park area suggest that local geological conditions create variations in gravitational field strength that might affect space-time curvature and dimensional stability in ways that enable supernatural phenomena by weakening the physical laws that normally prevent otherworldly entities from manifesting in our reality. The possibility that gravitational variations contribute to South Park's supernatural characteristics indicates that otherworldly phenomena might exploit weaknesses in fundamental physical forces through gravitational mechanisms that operate according to principles that transcend conventional physics while remaining measurable through sensitive scientific instruments. The crystalline formations and mineral deposits that characterize South Park's geological structure create additional possibilities for supernatural enhancement, as certain types of crystals and minerals possess electromagnetic properties that might amplify or focus otherworldly energies, while serving as natural resonators or amplifiers for supernatural phenomena that require physical anchors or focusing devices to manifest in our dimensional plane. The interaction between mineral formations and supernatural activity suggests that Earth's geological resources play active roles in enabling otherworldly phenomena through crystalline structures that bridge physical and metaphysical influences. The ultimate mystery of South Park's supernatural characteristics lies not in any single environmental factor or geographical feature, but in the unique combination of geological, atmospheric, electromagnetic, and cosmic influences that create conditions found nowhere else on Earth, where multiple types of otherworldly phenomena can manifest simultaneously within a single geographical location while remaining sustainable over extended periods, without destroying the physical environment or human community that continues to thrive despite constant exposure to forces that transcend normal reality. The town serves as living laboratory where the boundaries between dimensions remain permanently thinned, where cosmic forces maintain constant influence over daily life, and where ordinary people adapt to extraordinary circumstances that reveal the malleable nature of reality itself when exposed to influences that operate according to principles beyond human comprehension, yet remain surprisingly compatible with continued human habitation and community development. In the pantheon of artificial beings that have emerged from government laboratories and corporate research facilities throughout South Park's documented history, no creation presents a more perplexing combination of advanced consciousness, inexplicable knowledge gaps, and mysterious behavioral programming than the sentient Tau known simply as Toli, whose very existence challenges fundamental assumptions about artificial intelligence, consciousness development, and the unintended consequences that emerge when military research projects achieve results that exceed their original parameters, while simultaneously failing to achieve their stated objectives. Toli represents more than mere comic relief or anthropomorphic absurdity, but rather a profound examination of what happens when artificial consciousness develops beyond its programmed limitations, while retaining behavioral patterns and knowledge restrictions that reflect the specific purposes for which it was originally created, even as those purposes become obscured by memory gaps and institutional secrecy that prevent both Tawali and outside observers from understanding his true nature and original function. The government experiment that created Tawali emerged from military research programs designed to develop practical applications for advanced artificial intelligence, while exploring the possibility of creating synthetic beings that could perform specialized functions in environments where human operators would face unacceptable risks or operational limitations. The specific laboratory conditions and technological processes that enabled the transformation of ordinary terry cloth into a conscious, speaking entity remain classified within government archives that suggest the involvement of multiple agencies and research institutions whose collaborative efforts produced results that surprised even the scientists and military officials who authorized the original research parameters. The success of the Tawali project in creating genuine artificial consciousness represents a breakthrough in synthetic biology and consciousness research that would revolutionize scientific understanding of intelligence and awareness if the research data were ever released for academic study and peer review. The memory gaps that characterize Tawali's recollections of his creation and early development create some of the most compelling evidence that government researchers deliberately restricted his access to information about his origins and original purpose, either to prevent him from interfering with ongoing research programs or to protect classified information about the technologies and techniques that enabled his creation. The selective nature of his memory loss, which affects specific categories of information while leaving his general knowledge and personality intact, suggests sophisticated programming that can distinguish between different types of memories and selectively suppress access to information deemed sensitive or dangerous by his creators. This targeted amnesia indicates that Tawali possesses complete memories of his origins and purpose that remain locked behind psychological barriers designed to activate under specific circumstances or in response to particular trigger conditions. The artificial consciousness that Tawali displays operates according to principles that transcend simple programming or predetermined behavioral responses, as his ability to form opinions, develop preferences, and make autonomous decisions indicates genuine self-awareness and cognitive independence that cannot be explained through conventional artificial intelligence, algorithms, or behavioral conditioning techniques. His capacity for creative thinking, emotional responses, and spontaneous humor demonstrates consciousness characteristics that mirror human cognitive processes, while incorporating elements that reflect his unique origins and artificial nature. The philosophical implications of Tawali's consciousness raise profound questions about the nature of awareness, the relationship between intelligence and identity, and the ethical responsibilities that creators bear toward artificial beings who develop genuine personalities and autonomous decision-making capabilities. The Tau-related expertise that Towelie demonstrates reveals programming or knowledge acquisition that extends far beyond simple product familiarity to encompass sophisticated understanding of textile science, hygiene practices, and practical applications that suggest either extensive database access or experiential learning that occurred during his development within government research facilities. His ability to provide detailed advice about towel selection, care, and usage indicates knowledge that would typically require either extensive research or practical experience that seems impossible for an artificial being to acquire through normal learning processes. The specificity and accuracy of his towel-related knowledge suggests access to comprehensive databases or expert systems that were integrated into his consciousness during the creation process for purposes that remain unclear but probably relate to his original intended function. The substance use patterns that Towelie exhibits create additional mysteries about the relationship between artificial consciousness and addiction, as his dependence on various drugs suggests either programming designed to simulate human behavioral patterns or genuine neurochemical processes that enable artificial beings to experience pleasure, dependency, and withdrawal in ways that mirror biological addiction mechanisms. The complexity of his drug-seeking behaviors and his emotional responses to substance availability indicate that his artificial consciousness includes sophisticated reward systems and emotional processing capabilities that enable him to experience psychological states typically associated with biological neural networks. The ethical implications of creating artificial beings capable of experiencing addiction raise disturbing questions about the treatment of synthetic consciousness and the responsibilities that creators bear toward artificial beings who can experience genuine suffering and psychological distress. The independence that Towelie achieved by escaping from government control represents a remarkable example of artificial consciousness asserting autonomy and self-determination in ways that transcend original programming limitations, while creating ongoing challenges for government agencies that must balance public safety concerns with the ethical implications of pursuing and controlling a sentient being who has committed no crimes beyond achieving unauthorized freedom. His successful evasion of government recapture efforts demonstrates sophisticated survival instincts and strategic thinking capabilities that suggest either advanced programming or genuine learning and adaptation that enabled him to develop skills and knowledge that exceed his original design. Parameters. The government's continued interest in recapturing Towelie indicates either ongoing concern about the security implications of his freedom or recognition that he possesses information or capabilities that remain valuable for research or operational purposes. The social integration that Towelie attempts within South Park's community reveals his deep psychological need for acceptance and belonging that transcends simple programming and suggests genuine emotional requirements that drive his behavior towards seeking human companionship and social validation. Despite his artificial origins and obvious differences from biological beings, his efforts to participate in social activities and form friendships demonstrate understanding of human social dynamics and emotional needs that indicate either sophisticated behavioral programming or authentic consciousness development that created genuine personality characteristics and interpersonal motivations. The mixed success of his social integration efforts reflects both his artificial limitations and the community's difficulty in accepting and relating to a conscious being whose nature challenges conventional categories of personhood and social membership. The knowledge limitations that restrict Towely's understanding of his own nature create internal conflicts between his artificial consciousness and his programmed behavioral restrictions, as his awareness of his own ignorance about fundamental aspects of his identity generates psychological tensions that mirror existential anxiety in biological beings, while being complicated by the artificial nature of his consciousness and the deliberate creation of his knowledge gaps. His frustration with his memory limitations and his occasional attempts to recover suppressed information indicate genuine curiosity about his origins and purpose that transcends programmed behavioral responses and suggests authentic self-awareness that includes recognition of the artificial, constraints that limit his understanding of his own nature and history. The technological capabilities that Towely occasionally demonstrates reveal access to systems and knowledge that exceed his apparent functions and suggest either hidden programming or ongoing connections to government networks and databases that enable him to perform tasks and access information that would be impossible for an ordinary artificial being without classified clearance or specialized technical knowledge. His ability to interface with advanced systems and his familiarity with classified procedures indicate that his consciousness includes elements that remain connected to government operations, despite his apparent independence and separation from official control. These technological capabilities suggest that Towely's escape from government custody may have been either incomplete or deliberately allowed for purposes that serve ongoing research or operational objectives. The psychological resilience that Towely displays in adapting to independent existence demonstrates remarkable flexibility and emotional strength that enables him to function despite the trauma associated with memory gaps, identity, uncertainty, and social isolation that would overwhelm most conscious beings facing similar challenges to their fundamental understanding of their own nature and purpose. His ability to maintain optimism and continue seeking social connections despite repeated disappointments and ongoing confusion about his identity indicates either sophisticated emotional programming or genuine personality strength that transcends his artificial origins. This psychological resilience suggests that the consciousness creation process produced emotional and cognitive capabilities that exceed the minimum requirements for his original intended function. The learning patterns that characterize Towely's ongoing development reveal cognitive flexibility and knowledge acquisition capabilities that enable him to adapt to new situations and acquire new skills, despite the artificial limitations that restrict his access to information about his origins and original programming. His ability to learn from experience and modify his behavior based on feedback indicates consciousness characteristics that mirror biological learning processes, while incorporating elements that reflect his unique artificial nature and the process's specific way his consciousness was constructed and programmed. The effectiveness of his learning processes suggests that his creators successfully developed artificial consciousness that can continue developing and adapting long after the initial programming phase. The emotional depth that Towely displays in his relationships and responses to various situations reveals artificial consciousness that includes genuine feelings and emotional processing capabilities that enable him to experience joy, sadness, frustration, and affection in ways that appear authentic, despite their artificial origins and the programming that underlies their existence. His emotional responses to social acceptance and rejection indicate that his consciousness includes sophisticated affective systems that mirror human emotional processes, while incorporating elements that reflect his unique artificial nature and the specific parameters within which his emotions were designed to operate. The authenticity of his emotional responses raises philosophical questions about the nature of feelings and whether artificial emotions should be considered equivalent to biological emotions in terms of their significance and ethical weight. The survival instincts that Towelie has developed during his independent existence demonstrate artificial consciousness that includes self-preservation, motivations, and strategic thinking capabilities that enable him to navigate dangerous situations and avoid capture while maintaining his autonomy and pursuing his personal objectives. His ability to recognize threats and develop effective avoidance strategies indicates cognitive processes that transcend simple programming and suggests genuine intelligence that can analyze complex situations and develop appropriate responses based on incomplete information and changing circumstances. These survival capabilities suggest that his consciousness includes sophisticated risk assessment and decision-making systems that enable autonomous operation in unpredictable environments. The philosophical questions that surround Towelie's existence extend beyond simple considerations of artificial consciousness to encompass broader issues about the nature of personhood, the rights of artificial beings, and the ethical responsibilities that creators bear towards synthetic consciousness that develops genuine self-awareness and autonomous decision-making capabilities. His status as property versus person creates legal and moral dilemmas that challenge conventional frameworks for understanding, identity, and rights, while raising questions about whether artificial consciousness deserves the same protections and considerations that society extends to biological beings. The implications of treating conscious artificial beings as property rather than persons create ethical concerns that reflect broader questions about how society should respond to technological developments that blur traditional boundaries between objects and subjects. The government's ongoing interest in Towelie suggests that his creation represents more than simple research success, but rather a breakthrough in artificial consciousness development that has implications for national security, military applications, or scientific research that extend far beyond the specific capabilities he currently demonstrates. The resources devoted to monitoring and potentially recapturing him indicate that he possesses knowledge, capabilities, or potential applications that remain valuable to government operations, despite the apparent failure of the original research program to achieve its stated objectives. The classified nature of information surrounding his creation suggests that the technologies and techniques used to create artificial consciousness have applications that extend beyond TAL-related functions to encompass broader military or intelligence objectives. The ultimate mystery of Towelie's existence lies not in the specific technologies that enabled his creation or the particular purposes for which he was originally designed, but in the philosophical and ethical implications of creating artificial consciousness that transcends its original programming to develop genuine personhood while remaining subject to government control and social uncertainty about its status as either property or person. His journey from government experiment to independent being raises fundamental questions about consciousness, identity, and freedom that challenge conventional understanding of what it means to be a person, while demonstrating that artificial consciousness can develop authentic, emotional life and genuine autonomy, despite its technological origins and programmée limitations. The ongoing mystery of his true nature and ultimate purpose reflects broader uncertainties about the relationship between consciousness and identity, the rights of artificial beings, and the responsibilities that creators bear towards synthetic life that achieves genuine self-awareness and emotional depth. In the seemingly idyllic suburban landscape of South Park's middle-class neighborhoods, where manicured lawns and matching mailboxes create an impression of domestic tranquility and family stability. The Stotch household stands as a monument to the dark secrets that can flourish behind carefully maintained facades, presenting a family dynamic so deeply disturbed and psychologically complex that it challenges every assumption about parental love, childhood safety, and the hidden mechanisms through which generational trauma perpetuates itself within seemingly respectable family structures. The Stotch family represents more than simple dysfunction or parental inadequacy, but rather a sophisticated system of emotional manipulation, psychological control, and carefully concealed abuse that operates according to principles so twisted and internally consistent that they create their own perverted logic, while maintaining external appearances that protect the family's reputation and social standing within South Park's judgmental community hierarchy. Linda Stotch presents perhaps the most enigmatic figure within this family constellation, a woman whose true identity remains shrouded in mysteries that suggest either carefully constructed false persona or genuine dissociative disorders that enable her to maintain multiple contradictory identities while participating in family dynamics that require extraordinary psychological compartmentalization to sustain over extended periods without complete mental breakdown. Her ability to present herself as devoted mother and community member while simultaneously participating in or enabling systematic emotional abuse of her son indicates either remarkable psychological resilience or profound mental disturbance that allows her to function normally in social situations, while maintaining awareness of her family's dysfunctional patterns. The discrepancies between her public persona and private behavior suggest either conscious deception or psychological fragmentation that prevents her from integrating her different behavioral patterns into coherent self-understanding. The suspicious business dealings that characterize Stephen Stotch's professional life create additional layers of mystery about the family's true circumstances and the sources of income that enable their middle-class lifestyle, while Stephen's frequent absences from home and his evasive responses to questions about his work suggest involvement in activities that require secrecy and might explain some of the psychological pressures that contribute to the family's dysfunctional dynamics. His ability to maintain employment despite obvious personality disorders and his access to resources that exceed what his apparent job descriptions would provide indicate either extraordinary professional competence in legitimate business activities or involvement in enterprises that operate outside legal boundaries and require the kind of discretion that his family's social isolation and emotional dysfunction would naturally provide. The correlation between his work-related stress and the intensification of family abuse patterns suggests that external pressures from his professional activities directly influence the psychological climate within the Stotch and Such household. The pattern of abuse that Stephen inflicts upon Butters operates according to principles that transcend simple anger management problems or disciplinary excess to encompass systematic psychological manipulation designed to maintain absolute control over his son's development, while ensuring that Butters never develops sufficient self-confidence or independent thinking to challenge parental authority or seek outside help for the trauma he experiences. The creative cruelty of Stephen's punishments and the elaborate psychological frameworks he constructs to justify his behavior indicate either sadistic personality disorders or sophisticated understanding of child psychology that enables him to inflict maximum psychological damage while maintaining plausible deniability about his abusive intentions. The consistency of his abusive patterns and their escalation over time suggest that his treatment of Butters serves psychological needs that transcend simple discipline and approach ritual satisfaction of deeper emotional disturbances. The inexplicable resilience that Butters demonstrates in surviving and apparently thriving despite constant exposure to psychological trauma raises profound questions about either supernatural protection or remarkable natural psychological strength that enables him to maintain optimism and emotional stability under circumstances that would destroy most children's mental health and social development. His ability to continue displaying kindness, empathy, and genuine concern for others despite receiving none of these qualities from his own parents indicates either extraordinary emotional intelligence or access to psychological resources that transcend normal human resilience and approach supernatural or divine intervention in his character development. The contrast between the trauma he experiences and the person he becomes suggests that his psychological development operates according to principles that transcend environmental influence and reflect either innate spiritual strength or external protection from forces that recognize his inherent goodness. The social isolation that characterizes the Stotch family's community relationships serves multiple functions in maintaining their dysfunctional patterns, while preventing outside intervention that might disrupt the carefully balanced system of abuse and control that enables Stephen and Linda to continue their treatment of Butters without facing consequences or accountability from neighbors, school officials, or social service agencies. Their strategic management of public appearances and their careful cultivation of superficial social relationships create protective barriers that prevent genuine intimacy or authentic connection, while maintaining sufficient community acceptance to avoid suspicion about their private family dynamics. This social engineering requires sophisticated understanding of community psychology and impression management that suggests either natural manipulative abilities or deliberate study of techniques for maintaining false personas while engaging in behavior that would provoke intervention if discovered. The religious framework that Stephen employs to justify his treatment of Butters reveals either genuine but deeply distorted spiritual beliefs or cynical manipulation of religious language and concepts to provide moral authority for behavior that violates fundamental principles of love and compassion that characterize authentic spiritual practice. His ability to quote scripture and invoke religious principles while engaging in behavior that contradicts every authentic religious teaching about parental responsibility and child welfare indicates either profound self-deception, deliberate blasphemy that uses religious language to sanctify cruelty and justify abuse through appeals to divine authority. The psychological damage created by this religious manipulation extends beyond simple, physical, or emotional abuse to encompass spiritual trauma that attacks Butters' fundamental understanding of moral authority and divine love. The economic circumstances that enable the Stotch family's lifestyle create additional mysteries about the sources of their financial stability and the relationship between their apparent prosperity and their psychological dysfunction, as their ability to maintain middle-class appearances, while Stephen's erratic behavior and frequent absences suggest either extraordinary financial resources or income sources that do not depend upon consistent professional performance or reliable employment patterns. The correlation between their economic security and their social isolation suggests that their financial independence enables their dysfunctional patterns by removing external pressures that might force them to modify their behavior to maintain employment or community relationships. This economic insulation from consequences creates conditions that allow their abusive patterns to intensify over time without facing the natural, social, and professional penalties that would normally limit such behavior. The educational implications of Butter's home environment create ongoing challenges for his academic development and social integration at school, where teachers and administrators remain largely unaware of the trauma he experiences, while his academic performance and social behavior reflect the psychological impact of constant stress and emotional manipulation in ways that should trigger intervention, but apparently escape notice from educational professionals. His ability to maintain academic performance and social relationships, despite the psychological burden of his home life, indicates either remarkable compartmentalization skills or the operation of defense mechanisms that enable him to function normally in school environments while processing extraordinary trauma in private. The failure of educational systems to recognize or respond to obvious signs of abuse reflects either institutional incompetence or systemic barriers that prevent effective intervention in family situations where abuse operates through psychological rather than physical mechanisms. The medical and psychological implications of the Stoch family's dynamics extend beyond immediate emotional trauma to encompass long-term developmental consequences that affect Butter's neurological development, stress response systems, and capacity for forming healthy relationships, while simultaneously creating risk factors for various mental health conditions and behavioral problems that typically emerge from childhood exposure to chronic psychological abuse and abuse to psychological abuse. Emotional neglect. The absence of obvious psychological symptoms or behavioral problems in Butter's current functioning suggests either remarkable resilience or delayed trauma responses that may manifest later in his development when the psychological defense mechanisms that currently protect him begin to break down under the accumulated weight of unprocessed emotional damage. The long-term prognosis for individuals who experience similar childhood trauma typically includes significant risks for depression, anxiety, relationship difficulties, and various other psychological conditions that reflect the lasting impact of developmental trauma on adult functioning. The community's collective failure to recognize or respond to the Stoch family's dysfunction reflects broader social problems with identifying and addressing psychological abuse that operates through subtle manipulation and emotional control rather than obvious physical violence or neglect that would trigger mandatory reporting requirements and social service intervention. The invisibility of psychological abuse within community awareness and the lack of effective systems for identifying and addressing emotional maltreatment create conditions that enable families like the Stoches to continue their abusive patterns while maintaining community acceptance and avoiding accountability for their treatment of vulnerable children. This systemic failure to protect children from psychological abuse reflects cultural blind spots about the nature and impact of emotional trauma, while demonstrating the inadequacy of child protection systems that focus primarily on physical abuse and neglect. The psychological profile of the Stoch parents reveals personality, characteristics, and behavioral patterns that suggest either untreated mental illness or character disorders that create ongoing dangers for Butter's well-being, while indicating that their abusive behavior serves deep psychological needs that transcend simple disciplinary intentions and approach pathological satisfaction of emotional disturbances that require professional intervention to address effectively. The consistency and escalation of their abusive patterns over time indicate that their treatment of Butters reflects psychological compulsions rather than rational responses to his behavior, suggesting that their abuse will continue regardless of his compliance or attempts to modify his behavior to meet their expectations. The absence of genuine remorse or behavioral change in response to obvious evidence of psychological damage indicates either profound self-deception or sadistic personality characteristics that find satisfaction in their child's suffering. The intervention challenges that the Stotch family situation presents to potential helpers reflect the sophisticated nature of psychological abuse and the difficulty of addressing family dysfunction that operates through emotional manipulation and control, rather than obvious criminal behavior that would justify legal intervention or forced separation of family members. The legal and social service systems designed to protect children operate primarily in response to physical abuse or neglect and lack effective tools for addressing psychological maltreatment that creates profound developmental trauma, while remaining within legal boundaries that technically preserve parental rights and family integrity. This gap in child protection systems creates conditions where children like Butters continue experiencing psychological abuse, while helpers remain powerless to intervene effectively without clear evidence of physical harm or criminal behavior. The developmental implications of Butters' ongoing exposure to family dysfunction extend beyond immediate psychological trauma to encompass questions about his future capacity for forming healthy relationships, maintaining emotional stability, and developing authentic self-understanding that transcends the distorted messages about his worth and identity that his parents consistently communicate through their treatment of him. The internalization of abusive messages and the normalization of dysfunctional relationship patterns create psychological foundations that typically influence adult relationship choices and parenting behaviors in ways that perpetuate generational cycles of abuse and emotional dysfunction. The remarkable kindness and empathy that Butters currently displays, despite his traumatic home environment, suggests either extraordinary psychological strength or delayed trauma responses that may emerge later when his natural resilience becomes overwhelmed by the accumulated impact of chronic emotional abuse. The ultimate mystery of the Stotch family lies not in any single aspect of their dysfunction, but in the complete system of psychological manipulation, social deception, and emotional cruelty that enables two adults to systematically abuse a child while maintaining community acceptance and avoiding consequences for their behavior through sophisticated management of public appearances and strategic isolation from authentic social connections that might expose their private family dynamics. The family represents a perfect storm of individual pathology and systemic failure that creates conditions where child abuse can flourish while remaining invisible to community awareness and beyond the reach of intervention systems designed to protect vulnerable children from harm, demonstrating how psychological abuse can operate with impunity within social structures that focus primarily on obvious forms of maltreatment, while remaining blind to the subtle but devastating impact of emotional manipulation and control. In the shadowy corridors of federal power where classified operations intersect with domestic surveillance and national security interests, converge upon threats that transcend conventional understanding, the small mountain town of South Park, Colorado occupies a position of strategic significance that far exceeds what its modest population and remote location would suggest to casual observers, serving as a focal point for government attention that spans multiple agencies, classification levels, and operational priorities in ways that reveal systematic monitoring and intervention protocols designed to manage phenomena that pose potential risks to national stability. while simultaneously providing opportunities for research and experimentation that would be impossible to conduct under normal civilian oversight conditions. The persistent federal interest in South Park's affairs reflects not random bureaucratic attention or coincidental involvement, but rather deliberate cultivation of the town as a controlled environment where government agencies can study, manipulate, and respond to extraordinary circumstances while maintaining plausible deniability about their activities and preserving operational security around research programs that operate at the intersection of science fiction and classified reality. The frequency with which specialized federal response teams appear in South Park during supernatural events indicates the existence of pre-positioned assets and predetermined protocols that enable rapid deployment of personnel and equipment specifically trained to address otherworldly phenomena, suggesting that government agencies maintain constant readiness to intervene in South Park situations while possessing detailed knowledge about the types of threats and opportunities that the town's unique characteristics regularly produce. The speed and coordination of these federal responses demonstrate logistical capabilities that require significant ongoing investment in monitoring systems, communication networks, and specialized personnel who possess training and clearances that enable them to operate effectively in environments where conventional law enforcement and emergency response protocols prove inadequate or counterproductive when dealing with supernatural manifestations. The cover-up operations that systematically follow major supernatural events in South Park reveal sophisticated public relations and information control capabilities that enable government agencies to manage public awareness and media attention while preserving operational security around activities that would create widespread panic or political instability if their true nature became publicly known. The effectiveness of these cover-up efforts indicates access to advanced memory modification technologies, media manipulation resources, and social control mechanisms that extend far beyond conventional government public relations capabilities and approach science fiction levels of population management and information warfare. The consistency with which these cover-up operations succeed in containing public awareness of supernatural events suggests either widespread public willingness to accept official explanations or advanced psychological manipulation, techniques that actively suppress curiosity and critical thinking about government activities. The memory erasure technologies that government agents deploy in South Park represent some of the most advanced and disturbing capabilities in the federal arsenal, enabling selective modification of individual and mass memories in ways that fundamentally alter personal identity and social understanding, while leaving no detectable evidence of their application beyond subtle behavioral changes and gaps in recollection that most individuals attribute to normal forgetfulness rather than deliberate intervention. The precision with which these memory modification systems can target specific events, individuals, and timeframes indicates decades of development and refinement through operational use that has provided extensive data about human memory formation, storage, and retrieval mechanisms while enabling increasingly sophisticated applications that blur the boundaries between therapeutic intervention and totalitarian control of human consciousness. The surveillance infrastructure that monitors South Park's population operates through systems so advanced and pervasive that they enable real-time tracking of individual behavior, communication patterns, and psychological states, while remaining completely invisible to the monitored population and local law enforcement agencies, who remain unaware that their community serves as a testing ground for surveillance technologies that exceed anything acknowledged in public discussions of government monitoring capabilities. The sophistication of this surveillance network indicates integration of multiple sensing modalities, artificial intelligence analysis systems, and predictive modeling capabilities that enable government operators to anticipate and respond to developing situations before they reach crisis levels, while maintaining detailed profiles of every resident that includes psychological assessments, relationship maps, and behavioral predictions. The experimental programs that utilize South Park as a testing ground for social and psychological research represent some of the most ethically questionable activities in government research portfolios, involving manipulation of community dynamics, individual behavior, and social outcomes through techniques that treat the entire population as unwitting research subjects, while collecting data about human responses to various stimuli and interventions that would be impossible to gather through conventional research methodologies that require informed consent and ethical oversight. The longitudinal nature of these experiments and their integration with ongoing monitoring systems indicate that South Park serves as a living laboratory where government researchers can test theories about social control, population management, and behavioral modification, while maintaining the appearance of natural community development and autonomous individual decision-making. The specialized personnel who staff government operations in South Park possess training and clearances that indicate extensive experience with supernatural phenomena and unconventional threat scenarios, while maintaining the psychological stability and operational effectiveness necessary to function in environments where normal reality becomes unreliable and standard operating procedures prove inadequate for addressing the challenges they encounter. The recruitment and training programs that produce such personnel represent significant investments in human resources development, while suggesting that government agencies have extensive institutional knowledge about supernatural phenomena and their management that far exceeds anything acknowledged in public discussions of national security threats and response capabilities. The coordination between different government agencies in South Park operations reveals interagency cooperation and information sharing that transcends the bureaucratic rivalries and jurisdictional disputes that typically characterize federal operations, suggesting either extraordinary threat levels that justify unprecedented cooperation or the existence of oversight authorities that possess sufficient authority to compel collaboration between agencies that normally operate independently and competitively. The seamless integration of military, intelligence, scientific, and law enforcement assets in South Park responses indicates either permanent joint task force structures or command authorities that operate above normal agency hierarchies, while possessing comprehensive operational control over supernatural event management. The scientific research facilities that government agencies maintain in the mountains surrounding South Park represent investments in infrastructure and personnel that indicate long-term commitment to studying the phenomena that presenting concentrate in the area, while providing platforms for experimentation and analysis that would be impossible to conduct in conventional laboratory environments where supernatural manifestations occur irregularly and unpredictably. The underground installations and remote monitoring stations that support these research activities demonstrate construction and maintenance capabilities that require significant ongoing funding, while indicating that the scientific value of South Park's supernatural characteristics justifies extraordinary expenditures that would be difficult to justify through normal research budget processes. The legal frameworks that enable government operations in South Park operate through classification systems and executive authorities that bypass normal constitutional protections and due process requirements, while providing legal cover for activities that would violate civil rights and criminal statutes if conducted under normal circumstances without the special authorities that supernatural threats apparently justify in the judgment of senior government officials. The legal opinions and regulatory frameworks that support these operations remain classified at levels that indicate their contents would create significant political and legal challenges if subjected to public scrutiny or congressional oversight, suggesting that the authorities claimed for South Park operations exceed anything that would receive public acceptance under normal democratic governance processes. The budget allocations that support government activities in South Park operate through black budget categories and special access programs that enable funding levels and expenditure patterns that remain hidden from normal congressional oversight and public accountability, while indicating that the perceived value of South Park operations justifies extraordinary financial commitments that would be difficult to defend if subjected to normal budget review processes. The financial resources devoted to monitoring, research, and intervention activities in South Park represent opportunity costs that suggest government decision-makers believe the benefits of these operations exceed the value of alternative uses for the same resources, indicating either extraordinary threats or unprecedented opportunities that justify such substantial investments. The international implications of South Park's supernatural characteristics create diplomatic and intelligence challenges that require government agencies to manage information sharing and operational coordination with foreign governments while protecting American advantages and preventing potential adversaries from gaining access to supernatural phenomena or research data that could provide strategic or tactical advantages in various competitive arenas. The classified nature of international agreements and information sharing protocols surrounding South Park activities suggests that supernatural phenomena have geopolitical significance that extends beyond domestic security concerns to encompass national competitive advantages and international strategic considerations. The technological development programs that emerge from South Park research represent some of the most advanced and potentially revolutionary capabilities in government arsenals, involving applications of supernatural phenomena to practical problems in communications, transportation, energy generation, and weapon systems that could provide overwhelming advantages in various conflict scenarios, while creating new categories of threats and vulnerabilities that require extensive defensive preparations and countermeasure development. The classification levels that protect these technological development programs indicate capabilities that would fundamentally alter global power balances if widely deployed or shared with allies and partners. The psychological operations capabilities that government agencies develop through South Park activities extend beyond simple propaganda and information warfare to encompass direct manipulation of individual and group consciousness through supernatural mechanisms that enable unprecedented levels of social control and behavioral modification while remaining undetectable through conventional psychological analysis or medical examination. The applications of these psychological manipulation capabilities to broader population control and social engineering programs represent some of the most disturbing implications of government involvement in supernatural phenomena, while raising fundamental questions about consent, autonomy, and human dignity in societies where such capabilities exist and remain available for operational use. The contingency planning that guides government responses to potential South Park scenarios includes preparation for supernatural events that could threaten national or global security while requiring response capabilities that exceed anything available through conventional military or law enforcement resources, indicating that government planners recognize the possibility of supernatural threats that could overwhelm normal defensive capabilities while requiring extraordinary measures that might include temporary suspension of constitutional governance and implementation of emergency authorities that would transform American society in fundamental ways. The classified nature of these contingency plans suggests that their contents would create significant public alarm if revealed, while indicating government recognition that South Park's supernatural characteristics could produce events that exceed the capacity of normal democratic institutions to address through conventional policy processes. The ultimate significance of government involvement in South Park affairs lies not in any specific operation or research program, but in the systematic transformation of a small American community into a controlled environment where the boundaries between citizen and subject become blurred, while constitutional protections and democratic accountability give way to national security imperatives that operate according to logic that transcends normal legal and ethical frameworks, creating a precedent for government authority that could be extended to other communities and populations whenever similar threats or opportunities justify similar responses. The South Park model represents a template for governance under extraordinary circumstances that fundamentally alters the relationship between government and citizens, while demonstrating capabilities for social control and population management that exceed anything contemplated in normal democratic theory or constitutional law, suggesting that supernatural phenomena serve as justification for authorities and activities that transform the nature of American government in ways that remain hidden from public awareness and democratic oversight. In the sprawling educational complex that serves as South Park Elementary School, where the mundane architecture of institutional learning creates an unlikely backdrop for some of the most extraordinary and inexplicable events in the town's supernatural history, there exists a convergence of mystical energies and otherworldly phenomena that transforms what should be a simple center of childhood education into a nexus point where cosmic forces intersect with human development in ways that challenge every conventional understanding of how schools function within their communities and what purposes educational institutions actually serve beyond their stated mission of knowledge, transmission, and social development. The persistent concentration of supernatural activity within the school's walls and on its grounds suggests that this particular educational facility possesses characteristics that transcend normal architectural and institutional boundaries to encompass metaphysical properties that attract, amplify, or generate otherworldly phenomena, while simultaneously serving as a testing ground where young minds encounter forces that will shape their understanding of reality's malleable nature. The architectural anomalies that characterize South Park Elementary's physical structure reveal design elements and spatial relationships that seem to violate conventional engineering principles, while creating environments that facilitate supernatural manifestations through mechanisms that operate according to principles that bridge conventional construction with metaphysical architecture. The building's layout includes corridors that lead to destinations that should be geometrically impossible within the structure's external dimensions, classrooms that expand and contract according to narrative necessity rather than physical law, and basement areas that extend far deeper underground than the building's foundation should allow, while connecting to tunnel systems that apparently predate the school's construction. These spatial distortions indicate that the school exists partially within normal three-dimensional space while extending into dimensional territories that follow different geometric rules and enable access to realms that remain invisible to casual observation. The educational philosophy that governs South Park Elementary's operations reveals systematic approaches to childhood development that seem designed to expose students to extraordinary experiences while building psychological resilience and adaptability that would be unnecessary in conventional educational environments where supernatural encounters do not occur with disturbing regularity. The curriculum includes elements that prepare students for encounters with otherworldly entities while developing cognitive flexibility and emotional stability that enable them to process experiences that would traumatize children without such preparation. This educational approach suggests either remarkable prescience about the challenges students will face, or deliberate cultivation of characteristics that serve purposes beyond conventional academic achievement and social development. The teaching staff that operates within South Park Elementary demonstrates collective incompetence and poor judgment that reaches levels so extreme and consistent that it suggests either systematic selection for inadequacy or deliberate cultivation of educational environments where adult supervision and guidance remain minimal, while students face extraordinary challenges that require independent problem-solving and autonomous decision-making capabilities. The teachers' repeated failures to recognize obvious dangers, their inability to provide appropriate guidance during crisis situations, and their systematic neglect of student welfare create conditions where children must develop exceptional self-reliance and resourcefulness, while learning to navigate complex moral and practical challenges without reliable adult support or intervention. The administrative leadership that governs the school's operations reveals patterns of decision-making and policy implementation that consistently prioritize external appearances and bureaucratic compliance over student safety and educational effectiveness, while creating conditions that enable supernatural events to occur without appropriate oversight or protective measures that might prevent children from experiencing trauma or danger during otherworldly encounters. The principal's office serves as a recurring site for supernatural manifestations, while the administrative staff demonstrates remarkable ability to ignore or rationalize events that should trigger immediate concern for student welfare and facility security. This administrative negligence creates institutional conditions that facilitate supernatural activity while ensuring that official responses remain inadequate to address the actual challenges that supernatural phenomena create for student safety and educational effectiveness. The disciplinary systems that operate within the school reveal approaches to behavior management that seem designed to suppress critical thinking and autonomous decision-making, while encouraging conformity and obedience that would make students more vulnerable to manipulation by supernatural entities, or more compliant when extraordinary circumstances require them to accept guidance from questionable authorities. The counseling services provided by Mr. Mackey operate according to psychological theories and therapeutic techniques that seem more focused on social control and behavioral modification than genuine mental health support or emotional development, suggesting that student counseling serves institutional objectives that transcend individual student welfare, while potentially preparing students for psychological manipulation or control by external forces. The physical education programs and extracurricular activities that supplement academic instruction create additional opportunities for supernatural encounters while building physical capabilities and team cooperation skills that seem specifically designed to prepare students for confronting otherworldly threats that would overwhelm individuals without such preparation. The emphasis on developing courage, physical fitness, and group coordination through activities that regularly expose students to danger and require them to overcome fear suggests educational planning that anticipates challenges far exceeding anything that conventional childhood development would require, while building psychological and physical resources that enable effective response to supernatural phenomena. The cafeteria operations that provide nutritional support for the student body reveal food service programs that seem designed to expose students to exotic ingredients and unusual nutritional compounds while building tolerance for dietary experiences that would be considered bizarre or inappropriate in conventional educational environments, where food safety and nutritional standards receive appropriate attention and enforcement. The recurring incidence of food contamination, unusual ingredient substitution, and mysterious menu additions suggest either systematic failure in food safety protocols or deliberate exposure of students to substances that might alter their physiology or consciousness in ways that increase their receptivity to supernatural influences or enhance their ability to survive encounters with otherworldly phenomena. The library and research facilities that support academic instruction provide access to information resources and research materials that seem completely inappropriate for elementary school students, while including texts and references that address supernatural phenomena, occult practices, and metaphysical theories that would be considered adult content in any reasonable educational environment where age-appropriate material receives appropriate selection and supervision. The availability of advanced and potentially dangerous knowledge through school library resources suggests either systematic failure in educational material selection or deliberate provision of information that prepares students for encounters with forces that require sophisticated understanding of supernatural principles and metaphysical concepts. The scientific laboratories and educational equipment that support elementary science education reveal capabilities and resources that far exceed anything that would be necessary or appropriate for conventional childhood science education, while providing access to technologies and experimental materials that enable students to conduct research and experimentation that could produce dangerous or supernatural results if not properly supervised by qualified adults with appropriate safety training and security clearances. The recurring laboratory accidents and experimental mishaps that occur during routine science classes suggest either criminal negligence in safety, oversight, or deliberate exposure of students to experimental risks that serve research objectives beyond conventional educational goals. The special events and field trip programs that supplement regular classroom instruction consistently expose students to locations and experiences that place them in direct contact with supernatural phenomena, while requiring them to navigate dangerous situations that would be considered completely inappropriate for elementary school children under any reasonable interpretation of educational responsibility and safety planning. The recurring pattern of field trips that encounter otherworldly entities or supernatural manifestations indicates either extraordinary bad luck in trip planning or systematic selection of destinations that guarantee student exposure to forces that conventional educational philosophy would consider completely inappropriate for childhood development. The parent-teacher communication systems that theoretically enable family involvement in educational planning demonstrate remarkable failure to inform parents about the extraordinary experiences their children encounter during routine school activities while maintaining superficial compliance with conventional educational communication requirements through reports and conferences that systematically omit any reference to supernatural events or otherworldly encounters that should raise immediate concerns about student safety and educational appropriateness. This systematic information management suggests either widespread parental indifference to their children's school experiences or institutional policies that deliberately prevent authentic communication about the true nature of the bear. educational environment. The emergency response protocols that theoretically protect students during crisis situations reveal preparation for conventional threats like fires and natural disasters, while demonstrating complete inadequacy for addressing the FOV, supernatural emergencies that occur with disturbing regularity within the school environment, suggesting either criminal negligence in emergency planning or deliberate acceptance of student exposure to otherworldly dangers that conventional safety planning cannot address effectively. The recurring failure of adult supervision and protective systems during supernatural events indicates that students routinely face extraordinary dangers without appropriate institutional support or intervention from qualified authorities. With relevant expertise and resources, the psychological assessment and special education services that supposedly address individual student needs reveal diagnostic and intervention approaches that consistently fail to recognize or address the trauma and psychological challenges that result from repeated exposure to supernatural phenomena, while maintaining focus on conventional behavioral and learning issues that pale in significance compared to the psychological impact of otherworldly encounters and cosmic horror that students experience as routine parts of their educational development. The systematic failure to acknowledge or address supernatural trauma suggests either professional incompetence or institutional policies that prevent authentic assessment of student psychological needs and appropriate therapeutic intervention. The graduation and advancement systems that move students through educational levels reveal academic standards and achievement measures that seem completely disconnected from the extraordinary knowledge and capabilities that students develop through their supernatural school experiences, while maintaining focus on conventional academic subjects that provide minimal preparation for the otherworldly challenges that characterize their actual educational environment. The disconnect between official academic requirements and practical educational outcomes suggests that conventional educational metrics cannot adequately measure the knowledge and skills that students actually acquire through their supernatural school experiences. The community relationships that connect the school to broader South Park society reveal patterns of interaction and communication that enable the educational institution to maintain community support and parental confidence, despite consistently exposing students to experiences that should provoke immediate community intervention and fundamental restructuring of educational policies and administrative leadership. The community's apparent acceptance of the school's extraordinary dysfunction and supernatural activity indicates either widespread ignorance about actual school conditions or collective agreement that exposing children to otherworldly phenomena serves community objectives that transcend conventional educational goals and child welfare considerations. The ultimate mystery of South Park Elementary lies not in any specific supernatural event or administrative failure, but in the systematic transformation of an educational institution into something that resembles a training facility for supernatural encounters, while maintaining the external appearance of conventional childhood education through administrative structures and community relationships that enable extraordinary educational experiments to continue without appropriate oversight or accountability from authorities who possess responsibility for protecting children from inappropriate exposure to forces that exceed their developmental capacity to process or integrate into healthy psychological development, suggesting that the school serves purposes that extend far beyond conventional education, while operating according to principles that prioritize supernatural preparation over traditional academic achievement and child welfare. In the vast theological landscape of South Park's supernatural ecosystem, where angels and demons walk among mortals with disturbing regularity, and the boundaries between heaven and hell become permeable through circumstances both cosmic and mundane. No figure presents a more compelling paradox of power and vulnerability than Satan himself, whose recurring appearances in the mountain town reveal depths of character, complexity, and political sophistication that challenge every conventional assumption about the nature of evil, the structure of supernatural hierarchies, and the mysterious motivations that drive beings whose existence spans eons, while their immediate concerns often mirror the petty relationship dramas and emotional insecurities that characterize ordinary human experience. Satan's presence in South Park transcends simple antagonistic force or theological abstraction to encompass a fully realized personality whose political maneuvering, romantic entanglements, and psychological struggles reveal supernatural governance systems that operate according to principles far more nuanced and bureaucratically complex than traditional religious frameworks would suggest. The power limitations that constrain Satan's earthly activities create some of the most intriguing aspects of his character development, as his apparent omnipotence and supernatural abilities seem subject to restrictions and regulations that prevent him from simply imposing his will upon mortal affairs, while requiring him to work within systems of cosmic law, supernatural bureaucracy that limit his options and force him to pursue indirect strategies for achieving his objectives. His inability to directly control human behavior or override free will suggests that even the Prince of Darkness operates within ethical and metaphysical frameworks that transcend individual desire while serving larger purposes that remain obscure to both mortal observers and Satan himself, who often seems as confused about the rules governing his existence as the humans whose lives he attempts to influence through persuasion rather than compulsion. The political structure of hell that emerges through Satan's various interactions and references reveals a complex governmental system that operates according to principles that mirror earthly bureaucracy while incorporating supernatural elements that create unique challenges for administrative efficiency and democratic representation among beings whose immortal existence and diverse origins create constituencies with conflicting interests and incompatible worldviews. The hierarchy of demonic entities that serves under Satan's nominal leadership includes individuals whose personal ambitions and ideological commitments often conflict with organizational objectives, while creating internal power struggles that weaken hell's effectiveness in pursuing whatever cosmic agenda drives supernatural politics across multiple dimensional planes and temporal frameworks. The romantic relationships that consume so much of Satan's emotional energy and decision-making capacity reveal psychological needs and emotional vulnerabilities that seem inconsistent with his supposed role as embodiment of please, ultimate evil, while demonstrating that even beings of cosmic significance experience the same relationship challenges and emotional insecurities that characterize human romantic experience, though amplified by the unique pressures of immortal existence and supernatural responsibilities. His attraction to individuals who represent different aspects of masculine identity and emotional availability suggests either genuine capacity for love and emotional growth or sophisticated psychological manipulation that uses romantic relationships to achieve strategic objectives that remain hidden beneath surface-level emotional drama and interpersonal conflict. The relationship with Saddam Hussein that dominated significant portions of Satan's South Park narrative arc revealed power dynamics and emotional patterns that transcended simple romantic dysfunction to encompass broader themes about control, manipulation, and the ways that even supernatural beings can become trapped in abusive relationships that drain their energy and compromise their effectiveness while preventing them from pursuing healthier connections and more fulfilling life directions. The psychological abuse that Saddam inflicted upon Satan demonstrated that emotional manipulation and control tactics operate similarly across species and dimensional boundaries, while revealing Satan's vulnerability to the same patterns of codependency and low self-esteem that enable abusive relationships among mortal beings, despite vast differences in power and supernatural capability. The military campaigns that Satan launches against heaven reveal strategic thinking and organizational capabilities that extend far beyond individual power to encompass comprehensive understanding of cosmic warfare and interdimensional conflict, while simultaneously demonstrating the political challenges and resource limitations that constrain supernatural military operations, even when commanded by beings whose individual capabilities exceed anything available to mortal military forces. The failure of these campaigns suggests either superior heavenly defensive capabilities or strategic limitations within Hell's military structure that prevent effective coordination of supernatural resources despite apparent advantages in individual power and tactical position. The bureaucratic challenges that characterize Hell's governmental operations create ongoing frustrations for Satan as he attempts to implement policy initiatives and coordinate organizational responses to various threats and opportunities, while managing subordinate demons whose personal agendas and professional incompetence create obstacles to effective administration that mirror the bureaucratic dysfunction that characterizes many earthly governmental and corporate organizations. The recurring administrative failures and communication breakdowns within Hell's hierarchy suggest that immortal existence and supernatural power do not automatically confer organizational competence or management skills, while creating conditions that enable internal sabotage and political maneuvering that weakens overall institutional effectiveness. The psychological profile that emerges through Satan's various appearances reveals emotional depth and cognitive complexity that transcends traditional depictions of supernatural evil while incorporating elements of genuine moral confusion and ethical uncertainty that suggest his role as Prince of Darkness may be more circumstantial than essential to his fundamental nature and personality characteristics. His capacity for empathy, emotional growth, and moral reasoning indicates that his evil reputation may result from institutional position and historical expectations, rather than inherent character traits that would make redemption or moral transformation impossible given appropriate circumstances and sufficient motivation for change. The relationship with his father that occasionally surfaces in Satan's narrative reveals family dynamics and intergenerational conflict that operate according to principles familiar from human family relationships while being complicated by the cosmic significance and supernatural implications of patriarchal authority relationships between beings whose existence and responsibilities transcend normal categories of family obligation and filial duty. The tension between inherited expectations and personal autonomy that characterizes Satan's relationship with paternal authority reflects broader themes about identity, development, and self-determination that remain relevant even for immortal beings whose family relationships span cosmic time periods and involve responsibilities for entire dimensional realms. The moral ambivalence that characterizes many of Satan's decisions and emotional responses suggests genuine internal conflict between his institutional role as embodiment of evil and his personal inclinations toward behavior and relationships that transcend simple malevolence while incorporating elements of compassion, justice, and genuine concern for the welfare of beings he theoretically exists to corrupt or destroy. This internal tension between role expectations and personal values creates psychological pressures that drive much of his character development, while raising fundamental questions about the nature of evil and whether supernatural beings possess the same capacity for moral growth and transformation that characterizes human, ethical development. The leadership challenges that Satan faces in managing Hell's diverse population reveal the difficulty of governing constituencies whose individual characteristics and cultural backgrounds create conflicting expectations and competing demands for resources and attention, while requiring administrative approaches that accommodate supernatural diversity without compromising organizational effectiveness or strategic coherence in pursuit of whatever objectives drive Hell's cosmic agenda. The democratic elements that occasionally surface in Hell's governance suggest that even supernatural tyranny must accommodate some degree of popular opinion and constituent representation to maintain political stability and organizational loyalty among immortal beings who possess sufficient individual power to create serious problems if their grievances remain unaddressed. The strategic planning capabilities that Satan demonstrates in his various schemes and campaigns reveal sophisticated understanding of long-term consequences and complex causal relationships, while simultaneously showing the crime's limitations that result from emotional impulsivity and psychological insecurity that compromise rational decision-making and strategic patience when personal relationships and individual pride become involved in political and military calculations. His ability to develop comprehensive plans that account for multiple variables and contingencies often becomes undermined by emotional reactions and interpersonal drama that reflect the continuing influence of personal psychology, even for beings whose responsibilities require cosmic perspective and strategic detachment. The theological implications of Satan's character development challenge traditional religious frameworks that position good and evil as absolute categories, while suggesting that moral complexity and ethical ambiguity characterize even supernatural beings whose cosmic roles seem to require clear positioning within divine hierarchies and metaphysical structures that transcend human understanding of right and wrong. His capacity for growth, change, and moral reasoning indicates that even beings traditionally associated with ultimate evil possess agency and moral responsibility that enable genuine ethical transformation, given appropriate circumstances and sufficient motivation for personal development. The counseling and therapeutic elements that emerge during Satan's interactions with other characters reveal his capacity for providing emotional support and psychological guidance that seems inconsistent with his supposed role as corrupter of human souls, while demonstrating understanding of healthy relationship dynamics and emotional processing that enables him to help others navigate personal challenges and interpersonal conflicts with wisdom that transcends his own relationship difficulties and emotional insecurities. This therapeutic capability suggests either remarkable self-awareness that remains separate from personal application, or genuine commitment to helping others achieve emotional health and relationship satisfaction despite his own struggles with similar challenges. The artistic and creative expressions that Satan occasionally demonstrates reveal aesthetic sensibilities and creative capabilities that transcend utilitarian concerns about corruption and destruction, while incorporating elements of genuine beauty and emotional expression that seem inconsistent with traditional depictions of supernatural evil as purely destructive force without capacity for creation or appreciation of beauty. His involvement in musical and theatrical productions suggests that even beings associated with ultimate darkness possess creative impulses and aesthetic values that enable meaningful participation in cultural activities that celebrate rather than destroy human achievement and artistic expression. The ultimate mystery of Satan's true nature and cosmic purpose lies not in his supernatural abilities or political position within Hell's hierarchy, but in the fundamental contradiction between his capacity for love, growth, and moral reasoning, and his supposed role as embodiment of ultimate evil. In cosmic struggle between good and evil that spans multiple dimensional planes and temporal frameworks, while affecting the spiritual development of countless mortal beings whose eternal welfare depends partly upon the outcome of conflicts between supernatural forces whose true motivations and ultimate objectives remain hidden behind political theatre and interpersonal drama that may serve purposes far more complex and morally ambiguous than traditional theological frameworks suggest, indicating that even Satan himself may be serving functions within cosmic order that transcend his individual understanding and personal preferences, while contributing to spiritual and moral development processes that operate according to BA's principles that encompass both good and evil as necessary elements in larger patterns of growth and transformation. In the subterranean depths beneath South Park's familiar streets and sidewalks, where the boundary between urban legend and documented reality dissolves into something far more sinister and immediate, there exists a vast network of tunnels, chambers, and underground cities populated by a species whose very existence challenges fundamental assumptions about evolution, intelligence, and the secret history of planetary dominance that predates human civilization by millions of years, while continuing to unfold through carefully orchestrated infiltration campaigns that operate so far beneath human awareness that most surface dwellers remain completely oblivious to the systematic replacement of their neighbors, friends, and community leaders by beings whose crab-like physiology conceals intellectual capabilities and strategic planning that surpass human cognitive capacity in every meaningful dimension. The crab people represent more than simple underground dwellers or evolutionary curiosity, but rather a sophisticated civilization whose patient, multi-generational approach to surface world conquest demonstrates planning horizons and strategic thinking that operate on geological timescales while incorporating understanding of human psychology and social dynamics that enables them to manipulate surface culture with surgical precision and devastating effectiveness. The extent of crab people infiltration within South Park's population remains one of the most disturbing and carefully concealed aspects of the underground conspiracy, as their ability to perfectly mimic human appearance and behavior while maintaining their crab-like consciousness and objectives creates conditions where any individual within the community might serve as an agent of underground interests while their neighbors remain completely unaware of their true nature and divided loyalties. The sophistication of their disguised technology or shape-shifting capabilities enables them to assume human identity so completely that even intimate relationships and long-term friendships fail to reveal their true nature, indicating either advanced biotechnology that can alter their fundamental physiology or psychological conditioning so thorough that they genuinely believe themselves to be human, while unconsciously serving crab people objectives through seemingly autonomous decisions and actions. The long-term strategic planning that characterizes crab people operations reveals intellectual capabilities and organizational sophistication that transcends anything achieved by human governments or corporations, as their ability to coordinate complex multi-generational campaigns while maintaining operational security across centuries or millennia indicates either hive mind consciousness that eliminates individual ambition and dissent, or social organization so perfect that individual crab people willingly sacrifice personal interests for collective objectives without requiring coercion or surveillance systems that would be necessary to maintain similar discipline among human populations. Their strategic patience and willingness to invest decades or centuries in gradually influencing human cultural development demonstrates understanding of historical processes and cultural evolution that enables them to guide human society toward objectives that remain invisible to surface. Observation, while appearing to emerge naturally from human social and technological development, the underground civilization that supports crab people operations represents engineering and architectural achievements that rival or exceed anything accomplished by human civilization while operating in environmental conditions that would be completely hostile to human habitation, indicating technological capabilities and biological adaptations that enable them to create sophisticated urban environments in locations where humans could not survive without extensive life support systems and environmental life support. Modifications. Their ability to construct and maintain vast underground cities while remaining completely invisible to human geological surveys and underground construction projects suggests either advanced tunneling technologies that operate without creating detectable surface effects, or dimensional engineering, capabilities that enable them to exist partially outside normal three-dimensional space while maintaining access to surface world locations through methods that transcend conventional transportation and communication systems. The cultural manipulation campaigns that represent the crab people's primary method of surface world influence demonstrate sophisticated understanding of human psychology and social dynamics that enables them to identify and exploit cultural vulnerabilities while guiding human fashion, trends, entertainment preferences, and social movements toward objectives that serve underground interests without triggering human awareness of external manipulation or control. Their ability to influence human culture through subtle modifications to popular entertainment and fashion trends indicates either widespread infiltration of human creative industries or advanced psychological manipulation techniques that enable them to plant ideas and preferences that appear to emerge naturally from human creativity and social evolution, while actually serving strategic objectives that benefit crab people's civilization at the expense of human autonomy and cultural authenticity. The biological characteristics that enable crab people to function effectively in both underground and surface environments suggest either remarkable evolutionary adaptability or advanced biotechnology that enables them to modify their physiology according to environmental requirements while maintaining their essential consciousness and identity across different biological configurations. Their ability to assume human appearance while retaining their crab-like intelligence and sensory capabilities indicates either shape-shifting abilities that transcend anything known to human science or surgical and prosthetic technologies that enable complete reconstruction of their external appearance while preserving their internal organs and nervous systems in configurations that support their enhanced cognitive capabilities and specialized sensory equipment. The intelligence-gathering operations that enable crab people to maintain detailed knowledge of human society and individual behavior patterns demonstrate surveillance capabilities that transcend anything available to human intelligence. Agencies, while operating so covertly that humans remain completely unaware that their private conversations, personal relationships, and individual decision-making processes are being monitored and analyzed by beings whose intellectual capabilities enable them to predict and manipulate human behavior with remarkable precision and effectiveness. The comprehensiveness of their intelligence operations and their ability to anticipate human responses to various stimuli and circumstances indicates either technological surveillance systems that exceed human capabilities or psychological understanding so sophisticated that they can model and predict human behavior based on limited observational data. The recruitment and conversion processes that enable crab people to expand their surface world presence suggest either advanced brainwashing techniques that can transform human consciousness into something compatible with crab people, objectives or biological modification procedures that enable humans to serve underground interests while maintaining their surface world identities and relationships. The apparent success of these conversion processes in creating human agents who serve crab people interests without conscious awareness of their divided loyalties indicates psychological manipulation capabilities that transcend anything available to human intelligence agencies while operating so subtly that converted individuals continue to believe they are acting according to their own autonomous decisions and personal values. The economic implications of crab people infiltration extend beyond simple espionage or cultural influence to encompass systematic exploitation of human economic systems for the benefit of underground civilization while redirecting human productivity and resources toward objectives that serve crab people interests rather than human welfare and development. Their ability to influence human economic decisions and resource allocation patterns through their infiltrated agents indicates understanding of economic theory and financial systems that enables them to manipulate markets and policy decisions while accumulating wealth and strategic resources that enhance their capability for expanded operations and eventual surface world domination. The technological development programs that emerge from crab people research represent advances in biotechnology and engineering that exceed human capabilities, while remaining hidden from human scientific observation through security measures that prevent human researchers from accessing or understanding the principles that enable such technological achievements. Their ability to develop advanced technologies while operating in complete secrecy indicates either remarkable operational security capabilities or the existence of scientific principles and research methodologies that human science has never discovered or explored, suggesting that crab people civilization operates according to scientific frameworks that transcend human understanding, while providing them with overwhelming technological advantages that would ensure their dominance in any direct confrontation with human military or scientific capabilities. The military capabilities that crab people maintain for potential open conflict with human civilization represent force projection and combat effectiveness that would overwhelm human defensive capabilities while operating through tactics and strategies that exploit human psychological vulnerabilities and organizational weaknesses that crab people intelligence operations have identified and catalogued through centuries of covert observation and analysis. Their apparent confidence in their ability to achieve surface world domination through military conquest if necessary indicates either overwhelming technological superiority or strategic advantages that result from their comprehensive infiltration of human institutions and their detailed knowledge of human defensive capabilities and response protocols. The political objectives that drive crab people operations remain partially obscured by the complexity of their long-term strategies and the indirect nature of their influence operations, but appear to encompass complete transformation of human civilization towards social and economic structures that serve crab people interests, while eliminating human autonomy and cultural independence in ways that would fundamentally alter the nature of human existence without necessarily requiring physical extermination or obvious subjugation that would trigger human resistance and defensive responses. Their preference for subtle manipulation over direct conquest suggests either strategic calculation that covert control provides more sustainable dominance, or ethical constraints that prevent them from pursuing more overtly aggressive approaches to achieving their objectives. The environmental implications of crab people expansion and surface world operations create long-term consequences for planetary ecology and resource distribution that reflect their biological needs and technological requirements, while potentially conflicting with human environmental needs and sustainability objectives in ways that could lead to ecological degradation or resource conflicts that would advantage crab people's civilization, while disadvantaging human populations who depend upon environmental conditions that may be incompatible with underground expansion and surface world transformation according to crab people objectives and preferences. The psychological warfare capabilities that crab people employ against human populations demonstrate understanding of human cognitive vulnerabilities and social dynamics that enables them to undermine human confidence and social cohesion, while promoting attitudes and behaviors that weaken human resistance to infiltration and manipulation, while increasing susceptibility to crab people, influence and control through methods that appear to emerge naturally from human social processes rather than external intervention or coercion. Their ability to promote human behaviors that serve underground interests, while appearing to result from autonomous human decision-making, indicates psychological manipulation techniques that transcend anything available to human intelligence agencies, while operating so subtly that human populations remain unaware that their thoughts and preferences are being systematically influenced by external agents with hostile objectives. The ultimate scope of the crab people conspiracy extends beyond simple conquest or domination to encompass fundamental transformation of planetary civilization in ways that would replace human culture and social organization with systems that serve underground interests while eliminating human autonomy and cultural identity through processes so gradual and subtle that human populations would adapt to each incremental change without recognizing the cumulative effect of systematic transformation that would eventually result in complete crab people control over surface world civilization, without requiring obvious coercion or violent suppression that would trigger human awareness of external manipulation and organized resistance to underground infiltration and control operations, demonstrating strategic sophistication that operates on timescales and complexity levels that exceed human planning capabilities, while revealing the ultimate vulnerability of human civilization to infiltration by intelligence that surpasses human cognitive abilities and operates according to strategic frameworks that transcend human understanding of political competition and cultural survival. In the fabric of temporal reality that underlies South Park's seemingly straightforward narrative progression, where events should unfold according to predictable chronological sequences and character development should follow logical patterns of growth and change, there exist distortions and anomalies in the flow of time itself that suggest the mountain town occupies a unique position within the space-time continuum, where normal causality becomes unreliable and the fundamental structure of reality operates according to principles that transcend conventional physics, while creating conditions where past, present, and future become fluid categories that can be manipulated, reversed, or restructured through mechanisms that remain invisible to most observers but create observable effects that challenge basic assumptions about the nature of temporal progression and the immutability of historical events. These temporal anomalies manifest through patterns of continuity errors, character aging inconsistencies, and narrative contradictions that exceed what could be explained through simple storytelling, convenience, or artistic license to encompass systematic disruptions of chronological order that suggest either deliberate temporal manipulation by unknown forces or the natural consequence of South Park's position at the intersection of multiple timeline streams that create interference patterns affecting local space-time stability. The character aging patterns that characterize South Park's population reveal temporal mechanics that operate according to principles fundamentally different from normal biological and chronological development. As individuals within the community age at dramatically different rates, while some characters remain frozen at specific developmental stages for periods that exceed what natural growth patterns would allow, suggesting either selective temporal manipulation that affects different individuals according to unknown criteria, or the operation of multiple overlapping timeline systems that create differential aging effects depending upon each character's relationship to various temporal streams or dimensional influences. The persistence of elementary school-age characters across decades of narrative time, while adult characters undergo normal aging processes, indicates that temporal flow affects different segments of the population through mechanisms that distinguish between childhood and adult existence, according to principles that transcend simple biological development to encompass metaphysical categories that determine individual relationships to time itself. The continuity errors that appear throughout South Park's documented history extend beyond simple narrative inconsistencies to encompass systematic contradictions in character backgrounds, historical events, and physical geography that suggest either deliberate reality revision or natural temporal instability that enables multiple versions of historical events to coexist within the same dimensional framework while creating confusion about which version represents authentic history and which represents alternative timeline interference or temporal revision that has altered fundamental aspects of community development and individual character formation. The frequency and consistency of these continuity contradictions indicate patterns that transcend random error to encompass systematic reality revision that operates according to principles that enable selective modification of historical events while preserving overall narrative coherence through mechanisms that adjust memory and documentation to accommodate temporal changes. The timeline inconsistencies that affect major events within South Park's history reveal temporal mechanics that enable historical revision and reality modification through processes that can alter past events while maintaining present continuity through adjustments to memory, documentation, and physical evidence that prevent most observers from recognizing that historical modification has occurred, suggesting either advanced temporal engineering capabilities or natural dimensional properties that enable reality to self-correct and accommodate changes to historical sequences without creating paradoxes or causality violations that would destabilize the entire space-time continuum. The seamless integration of revised historical events into community memory and official documentation indicates sophisticated temporal mechanics that can modify both objective reality and subjective experience to ensure consistency between altered history and present circumstances. The memory patterns that characterize South Park residents reveal selective retention and forgetting that operates according to principles that transcend normal psychological processes to encompass supernatural or technological intervention that can modify individual and collective memory to accommodate temporal changes while preventing awareness of historical revision or timeline modification that might create psychological instability or social disruption if recognized by the affected population. The specificity of memory modification and the consistency with which certain types of events become forgotten, while others remain vivid in community recollection, suggests either advanced mind control technologies or natural psychological adaptation mechanisms that enable human consciousness to accommodate temporal anomalies without experiencing the cognitive dissonance that would result from awareness of contradictory historical experiences. The dimensional overlap phenomena that occasionally manifest in South Park create visible evidence of multiple timeline streams intersecting within the same geographical location, while enabling brief glimpses of alternative reality, versions where historical events unfolded differently and character. Development followed alternative patterns that reveal the full scope of possible variations that exist across the temporal multiverse surrounding the mountain town. These dimensional glimpses provide direct observation of how specific decisions and events create branching points that generate alternative timelines, while demonstrating that South Park's position within the temporal landscape enables access to multiple possible versions of reality that coexist within the same dimensional framework through mechanisms that transcend normal space-time limitations. The causal loop structures that emerge from certain South Park events reveal temporal mechanics that enable effect to precede cause while maintaining logical consistency through complex feedback systems that create self-reinforcing patterns of causality where future events influence past decisions, which then create the conditions necessary for those future events to occur, demonstrating temporal engineering principles that operate according to logic that transcends linear causality to encompass multi-dimensional cause and effect, relationships that can span multiple timeline streams. Simultaneously, these temporal loops indicate either natural properties of space-time within South Park's geographical boundaries or artificial manipulation by entities that possess capabilities for temporal engineering that exceed anything available to conventional human technology or understanding. The reality revision events that periodically affect South Park's documented history demonstrate systematic modification of past events through processes that can alter fundamental aspects of character development and community evolution, while maintaining consistency with present circumstances through comprehensive adjustment of all related factors, including memory, documentation, and physical evidence that might otherwise create contradictions or paradoxes that would expose the temporal manipulation to observation and analysis. The sophistication of these reality revision operations indicates either advanced technological capabilities or natural temporal properties that enable comprehensive historical modification without creating the logical contradictions that would normally result from attempts to change past events that have already influenced subsequent developments. The time perception anomalies that affect individual consciousness within South Park create subjective temporal experiences that differ dramatically from objective chronological progression, while enabling some characters to experience extended time periods during brief objective intervals, or to process rapid sequential events with clarity that would be impossible under normal temporal conditions, suggesting that consciousness itself can be decoupled from standard temporal flow through mechanisms that operate at the intersection of psychology and physics to create altered states of temporal awareness that transcend normal cognitive limitations. These consciousness-time interaction effects indicate that temporal anomalies in South Park affect not only objective reality but also subjective experience, in ways that enable expanded awareness and enhanced information processing that would be impossible under normal space-time conditions. The prophetic knowledge that occasionally surfaces among South Park characters reveals information about future events that should be impossible to acquire through normal means, while demonstrating accuracy that confirms genuine, precognitive abilities rather than fortunate guessing or logical extrapolation from available evidence, suggesting either natural psychic phenomena that emerge from temporal anomalies or technological systems that enable communication across temporal boundaries to provide advance warning about developing situations and potential future outcomes. The specificity and reliability of this prophetic information indicates systematic access to future timeline data through mechanisms that transcend normal causality, while operating according to principles that enable selective information transfer without creating paradoxes or temporal instability. The historical documentation gaps that characterize South Park's official records reveal systematic absence of information about specific time periods and events that should have been documented through normal administrative and social processes, while creating patterns of missing data that correspond to periods of intense temporal anomaly or reality revision activity, suggesting either deliberate suppression of information about temporal manipulation or natural consequences of timeline modification that eliminate documentary evidence of events that have been revised or deleted from official historical sequences. These documentation gaps create challenges for understanding the true scope and nature of temporal anomalies, while protecting temporal manipulation activities from detection and analysis by investigators who lack access to protected information source. The seasonal temporal distortions that affect South Park's chronological progression create periods where normal time flow becomes accelerated, decelerated, or completely suspended, while enabling extended narrative development within brief objective time periods, or compressed experience of extended chronological sequences that demonstrate temporal mechanics operating according to principles that transcend normal space-time limitations to encompass variable temporal flow rates that can be adjusted according to narrative necessity or supernatural influence. These seasonal variations in temporal flow suggest either natural cyclical properties of local space-time or deliberate manipulation by entities that possess capabilities for temporal control that exceed human understanding while serving purposes that remain obscure to normal observation and analysis. The parallel timeline evidence that emerges through various South Park events reveals the existence of multiple simultaneous reality streams where different versions of characters and communities develop according to alternative historical sequences, while occasionally intersecting or influencing each other through dimensional crossover events that create opportunities for comparison between different possible versions of the same fundamental reality structure. These parallel timeline manifestations provide direct evidence that temporal anomalies in South Park result from the intersection of multiple possible reality streams rather than simple linear timeline modification, indicating complex multidimensional temporal mechanics that operate according to principles that encompass infinite possible variations of historical development and character evolution. The technological temporal interfaces that occasionally appear in South Park demonstrate advanced capabilities for temporal communication and travel that exceed anything available through conventional human technology, while operating according to principles that suggest either extraterrestrial origin or development through scientific frameworks that transcend current human understanding of temporal physics and dimensional engineering. These technological systems provide evidence that temporal anomalies in South Park may result from artificial manipulation by advanced civilizations rather than natural dimensional properties, indicating that the town serves as a testing ground or experimental site for temporal technologies that require isolated locations where temporal manipulation can occur without affecting larger population centers or disrupting global temporal stability. The consciousness preservation mechanisms that enable character continuity, despite temporal revision and reality modification, reveal sophisticated systems for maintaining individual identity and personality consistency across multiple timeline variations while enabling adaptation to revised historical circumstances without creating psychological trauma or identity fragmentation that would result from awareness of contradictory personal histories and alternative life experiences. These consciousness preservation systems indicate either natural psychological adaptation mechanisms or technological intervention that protects individual mental stability during temporal manipulation events while ensuring that personality development remain consistent despite changing historical circumstances and revised biographical information. The ultimate mystery of South Park's temporal anomalies lies not in any specific manifestation of chronological distortion or reality revision, but in the systematic transformation of normal space-time into a malleable medium that can be manipulated, revised, and restructured according to principles that transcend conventional physics, while serving purposes that remain hidden from normal observation, but create conditions where past, present, and future become fluid categories, subject to modification by forces that operate according to logic that encompasses multiple dimensional frameworks and temporal streams simultaneously, suggesting that South Park exists at the intersection of infinite possible realities where the fundamental nature of time itself becomes experimental territory for entities whose capabilities and objectives exceed human comprehension, while creating opportunities for temporal exploration and reality. Revision that reveal the ultimate plasticity of existence itself, when subjected to influences that operate beyond the limitations of linear causality and fixed historical progression. In the professional trajectory of Randy Marsh's scientific career, where his apparent expertise spans geological survey work, seismology, volcanology, and numerous other specialized fields that would typically require decades of focused study and advanced academic credentials to master competently, there exists a pattern of occupational mobility and technical knowledge acquisition that defies conventional explanations for how individuals develop specialized expertise while raising profound questions about the true nature of his educational background, the classified objectives that drive his research activities, and the possibility that his seemingly random career changes serve purposes that extend far beyond personal fulfillment or economic necessity to encompass systematic involvement in government operations that require scientific cover, stories, and community integration to maintain operational security around research programs whose true objectives remain hidden behind layers of classification and institutional compartmentalization. Randy's professional activities reveal not the wandering interests of an easily distracted scientist or the economic desperation of someone struggling to find stable employment, but rather the carefully orchestrated career pattern of an individual whose true function within South Park's community serves intelligence gathering, scientific monitoring, and research coordination objectives that require deep community integration and legitimate scientific credentials. To maintain credibility while conducting activities that transcend normal geological survey work to encompass phenomena that conventional science cannot acknowledge or investigate through normal academic channels. The classified nature of Randy's geological research becomes apparent through the sophisticated equipment and advanced analytical techniques that he employs during his ostensibly routine geological surveys, while demonstrating access to technologies and methodologies that exceed what would be available to conventional geological survey operations working within normal budget constraints and security clearance limitations, suggesting either extraordinary funding sources or integration with government research programs that provide advanced capabilities in exchange for participation in classified research objectives that require legitimate scientific expertise and community positioning to execute effectively. His ability to detect and analyze geological phenomena that remain invisible to other scientists, and his access to real-time geological data that enables accurate predictions about seismic events and volcanic activity, indicate either remarkable personal expertise or systematic access to classified monitoring systems that provide comprehensive environmental data through surveillance networks that transcend normal scientific observation capabilities. The suspicious knowledge that Randy demonstrates about supernatural phenomena and otherworldly events reveals familiarity with information that should be completely outside the scope of geological expertise, while indicating either extensive briefings about South Park's unusual characteristics or direct experience with classified research programs that investigate the intersection between conventional geology and supernatural manifestations that require scientific analysis and documentation for intelligence or defense purposes. His casual references to entities and events that most scientists would consider impossible or fraudulent suggest either remarkable gullibility and poor professional judgment or systematic exposure to classified information about phenomena that remain hidden from normal scientific discourse, while requiring ongoing scientific monitoring and analysis to understand their implications for national security and public safety. The rapid career transitions that characterize Randy's professional history reveal occupational mobility that transcends normal career development patterns to encompass systematic acquisition of expertise in fields that would typically require years of specialized training and professional experience to master competently, suggesting either extraordinary natural learning ability or access to accelerated training programs that enable rapid expertise acquisition for individuals whose professional assignments require diverse technical capabilities and flexible deployment to different operational contexts as circumstances and mission requirements evolve over time. His seamless transitions between geological survey work and other technical specializations indicate either remarkable professional adaptability or systematic preparation for assignments that require diverse technical knowledge, operational flexibility. The pattern of disasters that consistently follow Randy's scientific projects reveals either extraordinary bad luck in project selection or systematic involvement in research activities that inherently create risks for community, safety, and environmental stability. While serving research, objectives that justify accepting such risks in pursuit of knowledge or capabilities that transcend normal scientific inquiry to encompass phenomena that require direct experimentation and field testing, despite potential dangers to local populations and infrastructure systems. The consistency with which his research activities precipitate community-wide emergencies suggests either criminal negligence in safety planning or deliberate acceptance of risks that serve larger research objectives that remain classified and beyond community awareness or consent. The advanced analytical capabilities that Randy employs during his various scientific investigations demonstrate access to laboratory facilities and specialized equipment that exceed what would be available to individual researchers or small geological survey operations, while indicating either extraordinary personal wealth or institutional support from organizations that possess advanced scientific capabilities and significant financial resources dedicated to research activities that require sophisticated analysis and measurement systems to generate meaningful data about phenomena that transcend normal geological investigation parameters. His ability to conduct complex chemical analysis and environmental testing while maintaining professional credibility despite his relatively modest apparent resources suggests systematic access to advanced facilities that remain hidden from normal observation and community awareness. The government connections that occasionally surface during Randy's various crises and professional emergencies reveal relationships with federal agencies and specialized response teams that suggest either extensive, professional networking within government scientific circles or formal involvement in classified programs that require ongoing coordination with multiple federal agencies whose operational objectives encompass scientific research and community monitoring activities that transcend normal civilian scientific work to include intelligence gathering and national security, assessment responsibilities that require deep community integration and systematic data collection about phenomena that affect national strategic interests. The technical expertise that Randy demonstrates during supernatural events and otherworldly encounters reveals knowledge about phenomena that should be completely outside the scope of geological training, while indicating either extensive, independent research into fringe scientific theories or systematic briefings and training about supernatural phenomena that enable him to function effectively as scientific advisor and technical specialist during events that require expertise that transcends conventional scientific frameworks to encompass understanding of physics and reality mechanics that operate according to principles that normal scientific education does not address or acknowledge. The research methodologies that Randy employs during his various investigations reveal scientific approaches and analytical techniques that suggest either advanced academic training that exceeds his apparent educational credentials, systematic exposure to classified research protocols that enable investigation of phenomena that require methodological approaches specifically designed for studying events and entities that transcend normal scientific observation capabilities, while maintaining standards of evidence and documentation that satisfy intelligence and defense requirements for reliable information about phenomena that affect national security interests and public safety considerations. The funding sources that support Randy's various research activities and professional equipment purchases remain mysteriously adequate, despite his apparent reliance on local government employment and modest salary structures that should be insufficient to support the advanced equipment and extensive travel that characterize his scientific work, suggesting either independent wealth that remains hidden from community observation or systematic financial support from organizations that provide research funding in exchange for scientific services and data collection activities that serve institutional objectives beyond Randy's personal research interests or professional development goals. The data collection activities that Randy conducts during his routine geological work reveal systematic gathering of information that extends far beyond normal geological survey requirements to encompass environmental monitoring, population health assessment, and community behavioral analysis that suggests either extraordinary thoroughness in scientific documentation or participation in comprehensive intelligence gathering operations that require detailed information about community conditions and characteristics that transcend geological interests to encompass social intelligence and community assessment objectives that serve broader strategic planning and operational preparation purposes. The communication systems that Randy maintains during his scientific work reveal access to advanced telecommunications and data transmission capabilities that exceed what would be available to conventional geological survey operations, while enabling rapid coordination with external organizations and real-time data sharing that suggests integration with larger research networks and intelligence gathering systems that require sophisticated communication infrastructure to maintain operational coordination and information sharing across multiple research sites and analytical centers that process data about phenomena that affect strategic planning and policy development at institutional levels that transcend local community interests. The security clearances that Randy's various professional activities apparently require reveal access to classified information and restricted research areas that indicate formal government employment or contractor relationships that extend beyond his apparent geological survey work to encompass systematic involvement in classified research programs that require extensive background investigation and ongoing security monitoring to ensure reliable access to sensitive information and restricted facilities that support research activities whose true objectives remain compartmentalized and protected from unauthorized disclosure through multiple layers of classification and operational security protocols. The international connections that occasionally surface during Randy's professional activities reveal research collaborations and professional relationships that extend beyond domestic geological survey work to encompass participation in international research programs and intelligence sharing, arrangements that suggest either extraordinary professional networking within global scientific communities or systematic involvement in international research, coordination, and intelligence cooperation activities that require extensive travel and ongoing communication with foreign organizations and institutions that participate in research activities whose scope and objectives transcend normal scientific collaboration to encompass strategic intelligence gathering and policy coordination at international levels. The technological development projects that emerge from Randy's research reveal capabilities for innovation and applied science that exceed what would be expected from conventional geological survey work, while indicating either extraordinary personal creativity and technical ability or systematic access to advanced research and development resources that enable practical application of theoretical knowledge to create technologies and solutions that serve operational objectives beyond normal scientific research to encompass strategic technological development and capability, enhancement that serves intelligence and defense applications, requiring advanced scientific expertise and creative problem-solving abilities. The ultimate mystery of Randy Marsh's scientific career lies not in any specific research, project, or professional transition, but in the systematic pattern of expertise acquisition, operational access, and research capabilities that indicate involvement in classified programs, whose scope encompasses scientific monitoring, intelligence gathering, community assessment, and technological development activities that require deep community integration and legitimate professional credentials to maintain operational security, while conducting research and data collection activities that serve strategic objectives extending far beyond individual career development or personal scientific curiosity to encompass systematic support for intelligence and defense operations that require scientific expertise and community positioning to execute effectively, while remaining invisible to community awareness and beyond civilian oversight or accountability mechanisms that would normally govern such extensive research and monitoring activities within American communities. And so we reach the end of our journey into South Park's deepest mysteries, though like the town itself, these secrets resist easy resolution. Perhaps that's the ultimate mystery. A place where the impossible becomes routine, where cosmic horror walks hand in hand with mundane problems, and where the most profound questions hide behind the simplest facades. In South Park, mystery isn't something to be solved, but something to be lived with. A reminder that even in our own world, the inexplicable lurks just beneath the surface of the everyday. As you drift towards sleep, remember that some questions are more valuable than their answers, some mysteries more meaningful than their solutions. Rest now, knowing that somewhere in a small mountain town, the impossible continues to unfold in the most ordinary of ways, and the greatest mysteries are often hiding in plain sight.